my word.
Wow.
Did anyone bet this one? Did you get your fantasy lineup right? And look, if there's any team that can do it in this situation, it's the defending world champion.
It's the defending world champion.
Isso, Decão, acabou o jogo!
Pulling out the NATO! And a big-time connection from the Ram Rider.
Liquid no dormimos, Liquid avanza! It's the defending world champion.
Spacestation Gaming, pretty dang perfect. It was all SSG all day.
Avocati, brilliant recovery.
Wow,
Poison gonna do it. Back for Queso, but here we go. Spacestation Gaming gets it done on the left-hand side. Bent there by Surge TF.
Inch high, but that's gonna be it. Spacestation Gaming.
This is it, win or go home. We are in the playoffs. 3 former champions and 1 team that has never tasted the podium, all vying for a shot at our semifinals tomorrow. Hello and welcome. I'm Rich Slayton. Joining me as always, my friend Andrew Guy for the big one, the playoffs. 4 teams all trying to make it to that championship for our CRL West Spring season, but only 2 will get through today, Andrew.
Yeah, and we're going to start things off with our defending world champions. I'm very excited, man. This is a huge day, and first of all, let's get through some of the business, right? We're here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on. We got 3 more match days, including today. So there's just tomorrow and next weekend semifinals, and then our finals to find out who is the champion of CRL West. And of course, if you've been following along with all this, I hope you're following us on Twitter as well, at Esports Royale EN. You can follow him at Rich Slayton. You can follow me at Andrew Guy. And there's been polls up. There's been conversation up. There is so much great information on that Twitter page, on all of our Twitter. So go and follow us. Lastly, Fantasy Royale. We're getting close. We're closing things out. Were you worried it was over? It's not. We got the entire playoffs in fantasy. Your lineups had to be set already for the weekend of quarters and semis. However, trades will open up again on Tuesday for our playoffs. It's a weird day for fantasy because you kind of go all in on one team, or I guess 2 teams, and hope that they ride it on to the semis, or do you kind of play it safe and pick a couple guys or one guy from each squad? I don't know. I went all in on a team. Rich, did you do the same, or did you kind of play it a little more safe?
Bet it all, Andrew.
Yeah.
Bet it all. Take the risk. Go big or go home, baby. There's no prize for second place. I mean, there is, but who cares about the prize for second place? I tell you one thing, these teams don't, and a little different this season. In the past, we've had that gauntlet-style playoff where you have to run your way through 6, 5, 4, 3 all the way up. This time we have a full-on 16 playoff bracket, 2 different sides. On one side today, the Spacestation Gaming with that team that won the North American Championship as Immortals going up against the defending world champions in Team Liquid. The winner of that has Tribe Gaming, has never lost a set, waiting for them. On the other side, Andrew, SK Gaming, the defending Western champions, take on Cream Royale Betis. It's really in this position to have a good shot at it for the first time since back in CRL Latin America. The winner of that goes against the phenomenal Misfits game.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. We've got a BO5 format for playoffs. Each set is still going to be a BO3, but the entire match itself is a BO5. So we're going to start off with 2v2 and then 3 1v1 sets. Obviously, the last set is only played if necessary, and then we'll close things out with a King of the Hill set that is also if necessary. Just to let you know, any player can play in any of those first 2-4 sets, but they cannot play in back-to-back 1v1 sets. So you could get a guy to start off in 2v2 and close out in those 1v1s, but you cannot have a guy play the second and third sets in 1v1, if that makes sense. I hope it does.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, Andrew, and we'll see if these teams can nail it. This format really shows whether or not your team has depth.
Yes.
Right? Any 2v2 and 1v1, that's 6 maximum games. You can win 4 games and be done. You don't really explore the full depth of a roster. Here with potentially 3 1v1 sets, you really see how good it is from top to bottom, and it's going to separate the champions from the ones who go home today.
Yeah, completely agreed. So speaking of champions, we got 2 championship lineups right now. SSG going up against Team Liquid, and just some things here to focus on is 2v2 has always been a great set for Spacestation Gaming. Team Liquid struggled a little bit with it this season, but they changed things up recently. Let's look at the rosters for Spacestation Gaming, starting starting off with that 2v2 duo, Crap and the God RF. Of course, Lapicati has been lights out in that 1v1 set. He's actually closed out every single win that Spacestation Gaming has had, whether it's been in that 1v1 set or in King of the Hill. And lastly, Samuel Basoto is a guy that we've only seen play one game this season. Wondering if we'll see him pop into one of those 1v1 sets, maybe the second or the third one, Rich.
Their opponents today, Andrew, the defending world champions, Team Liquid, and not much has changed with the faces of this roster since adding in Igor. They've been pretty much set with this group, but this season are really interesting. You know, we've talked about the shortened season, how teams struggle with it. Team Liquid limped their way into playoffs. They had the 2-0 in the final match. They got it done, and here they are. Surgical Goblin and Canario were the 2v2 duo most recently. We'll see if that stays the same. And of course, Igor, the Mortar Master, who clutched up at CRL World Finals. And then Diego B, who has been with Team Liquid since the beginning, a big part of this roster. We'll see if he's with Canario in 2v2 or Surgical Goblin when we get into that opening set.
One really interesting thing to think about with Team Liquid here is with Surgical Goblin, most likely, there he is, playing that 2v2 with Canario once again. Obviously, AC and RF coming out for Spacestation Game. We've got Miner and Tornado banned. I'm very curious, if we do get to King of the Hill, will we see Surgical Goblin in that set? We haven't seen him play much head-to-head at all this season, and that's something that we usually we tip our hat to Team Liquid, right? Is once it gets to King of the Hill, you get Igor, Canario, and Surge, and it seems like it's impossible to run through. I'm very curious, if we get there today, will we see that lineup, and is it as dominant as it has been in the past?
Well, Spacestation certainly has their own Fire King of the Hill lineup, where most likely you'll see Samuel, RF, and Lapicati. Of course, a much younger, less experienced on big stages like this group, but doesn't matter. First, you have to get through those opening sets, and let's start with the kickoff. Set number 1, the 2v2, AC and RF at the bottom of your screen. For Spacestation Gaming, top of your screen, the goated one, Surgical Goblin, and his teammate, Canario. For Team Liquid.
I couldn't ask for much more for 2v2 duos to start off our playoffs, having these 4 guys come out. I am so freaking excited, man.
You have 5 of the top winningest 2v2 players in the game in this set between AC, RF, and Canario. And Canario is a guy who was quietly one of the best players in the league in Season 1 when he was with G2 Esports, and then has since then with this grouping with Team Liquid really shown and taken the center stage as being one of the best players in competitive Clash Royale.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and Canario is one of those guys that has always kind of blown our minds with his gameplay, and now watching him be a 2v2 all-star has been a really cool way to see his career evolve. And there he is, Rich. We haven't talked about it yet. Balance changes are in, Skeleton Dragons are in play, and that Fisherman buff is something we're going to see a lot of today. You were telling me about the tournaments that you host, and basically since the balance changes came out, we have seen a ton of Fisherman and Hunter paired together once again.
Fisherman Hunter specifically, and you used to see some Fisherman P.E.K.K.A, some Fisherman Mini P.E.K.K.A in previous Fisherman metas, but Fisherman Hunter right now seems to be the most dominant combination, and it's popping up everywhere. So once we get into that head-to-head play in the 1v1 in King of the Hill, expect to see a wide variety of decks that do run some combination of those two, because it really fits in a wide variety of archetypes.
Yeah, and that charge-up speed being reduced is massive for having to deal with reaction times on things like a Charging Prince, a Bandit dropped at the river, having to pull a Giant to the opposite side of the map, or a Royal Giant. That Fisherman reduced time is a massive buff, and I'm really, really happy to see it.
Fisherman Night Witch go to opposite lanes for Spacestation in the back. Fisherman supporting the Goblin Brawler on the left-hand side, Night Witch to the right. We are now in double elixir time. Not much has happened so far, but here we go. Full-on, raged-up Lava Loon push on the right-hand side from Team Liquid.
Yeah, raged-up Lava Loon. You got Musketeer, Mega Minion, and Baby Dragon behind. Freeze comes in on both sides of the map. That balloon is going to come through with some death damage, but does not quite connect for the big drop.
Clutch snowball there from Spacestation. Here we go, final 30 seconds of regulation. And that's a big chunk. Baby Dragon belching 1358 on the right-hand side. Spacestation in a lot of trouble as we head towards sudden death.
Yeah, Musketeer could just not get the damage where she needed it, focusing on those lava pups. Graveyard does finally come out, which we can kind of expect looking at the makeups here from AC and RF, and of course the freeze being dropped on defense kind of showed their opponents what they were most likely running. Gets a little bit of a blow there, but still behind by about 400.
I'm both surprised and not surprised, Andrew, to see Spacestation running Graveyard. Of course, this duo loves to run double Graveyard. You think maybe in a situation like this, you don't go with the deck that you're best known for, but here today they say maybe with a new meta, we have a new look. We'll see if it can pull off the win here, but that balloon's getting awfully close to tower and just barely stops short.
Yeah, that last second freeze, we'll see if it actually was necessary or not, and we'll see if that elixir was needed here in the long run. That 4 elixir spent on the freeze now maybe making it a little bit harder to support this graveyard push, but P.E.K.K.A in underneath that Inferno.
Log wipes off some of those skeletons. Final 90 seconds of sudden death overtime, and just like that, Space Station takes a very, very slight lead. Dark Prince unshielded, going the opposite direction, and now maybe a reset here for this final minute to see who can get that last big chunk of damage to take game number 1.
Going all offense here so that Liquid cannot support that Lava Hound with the balloon like they enjoy to do, and a lot more damage coming in. That last sequence where the Baby Dragon took out the Inferno along with the poison to keep that P.E.K.K.A alive is the reason we have Space Station in the lead, and here we go, pouring it on at the river. It feels like Liquid is in a world of trouble.
Fisherman goes coast to coast on that one. 61 HP, tower down. Space Station takes game number 1.
We talked about him so much early in the game, all about defense, but he slips on through a couple times in that game. Once on the left side early on, and then once again on the right at the end to close things out. That Fisherman, he's back, and he is brutal.
To the way it just slid right on through. Nothing on the ground. The battle taking place in the air. And kind of a sly move there. Says, does the Scorpion reverse get over here? Jumps on the tower, slaps the fish against the rocks. I had no idea a fish could take down an entire tower, but apparently that thing's pretty strong. And there you go. Space Station takes game number 1.
Yeah, you know, that Fisherman coming in, whether he was taking for the Skellies or the Skellies were taking for him, it was just an excellent, excellent synergy there. And here we go. The final moments, we can maybe take another look at this. This was right after that P.E.K.K.A was on the board. Inferno Dragon came down. The poison plus that Baby Dragon were able to keep some tanks. And this is the moment where SSG goes, look, as long as we pour it on offensively, you cannot drop a balloon behind that lava and freeze. And that's the moment where things really, really turned for Team Liquid.
And you can see coming into this sequence, Liquid was a little bit behind on Elixir having to play so much defense before we actually saw what we're seeing on camera right now. And so when they dropped that Lava Hound at the bridge, which they felt like they needed to do, that left them even more wanting. And you can see nothing really in their hand to get on the ground and get in the way of that Fisherman. He just slides right on by. A sneaky win there for Space Station, and a big one. Andrew, we were talking before today's show about how we think this set would go. And there's some interesting matchups in the 1v1s that we'll get into as we get there, but obviously it really felt like for Space Station, locking it down in 2v2 rises their chances up to win this match so heavily.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and what I really liked about this 2v2 set was that Canario and Surge really put the pressure on. AC and RF never panicked. Knowing they were running Graveyard as their win condition, they knew that it was going to come into overtime where they were really going to come ahead if they were going to win the game. So I love that they stayed calm, cool, collected, and then you saw them just pour it on at the river time and time again. And, you know, once again, to talk about that Fisherman, that was a prime example of how that charge up works, because he had crossed the river. There was the high Goblin Cage, but the fact that he had already started charging up that hook made it so that Goblin Cage could not stop right at the bridge. Like, was, you know, that's what you always try to do playing against Graveyards. So a lot of great plays there. And you know, to circle back around on your point, I do believe that SSG taking that first game, it gets in the head of Team Liquid, and it gives them the set that they need to win here.
Yeah, it's going to be an important one. Obviously, Team Liquid has some firepower in the 1v1s. No slights on the Space Station gaming side, but it's a very frightening prospect trying to go through Igor, Canario, and of course Surge and Diego on top of all that. So we'll see if they can close things out here in game number 2. Let's jump back in to the 2v2 set. Space Station with set point.
Yeah, so last game, you know, these 4 gentlemen decided to take it a little bit slow. This game, not going to be the case.
Yeah, looking like it might be that quadruple bait from Space Station. And potentially Royal Giant here from Surgical Goblin and Canario with all the heal spirits.
Yeah, that double bait, you know, Tornado being off the board, don't have to worry as much about King Tower activation. And we'll see here how Liquid wants to fare against this very, very dominant deck in the 2v2 set. And that's a
Fisherman out and Dark Goblin for Surge and Canario. And you see the bait going to both lanes so far to open things up. Lumberjack to the left-hand lane and the right, or no, just to the left-hand lane, and just a little bit of chip on the right-hand side, and there we have it, the Giant Skeleton.
Yeah, that was an interesting tell early on by Surge and Canario. You saw they double drop the Lumberjack and the Dark Goblin to take off the Goblin Barrel on the left-hand side, so AC and RF decided to go Goblin Barrel to the right, maybe already recognizing that their opponents may not have all the answers they would like for double bait.
Well, they have the zap, they have the log. The question is when it starts getting to those 4 different pieces. You can stop the first one, stop the second one. But as we've seen, it's the third and the fourth that cause the real trouble.
So zap out. Log going to come down probably on this barrel. There it is. And now we'll see how AC and RF want to attack, knowing that the best spells are out of cycle for Team Liquid.
Slightly ahead on Elixir is Spacestation Gaming as we pass the midway point of regulation time. And here we go. Goblin Barrel to the right-hand side, and that requires a 6 Elixir drop to deal with that 3.
Yeah, and that's a huge, huge thing to take note of. That's a game that they're going to want to play time and time again, or winning these Elixir battles. But here we go. Huge push. Mega Knight at the river, though. Great response to this sellout push by Team Liquid.
And there you have the Royal Giant. I mean, Fisherman right now, one of the popular archetypes in head-to-head play for Fisherman is in Royal Giant. Lots of people playing that Fisherman Hunter with Royal Giant, Log, and Fireball at the moment. So we'll see if they also have that Fireball as a big spell mixing this 2v2 variation.
Yeah, right now looking, though, like Team Liquid in a bit of trouble. Maybe Mega Knight comes down again. Do they have 2? No, it's going to be a P.E.K.K.A this time. Up high. RG coming on through. Log's back, but will get a shot or 2.
And that's the idea with that Fisherman. Pull the P.E.K.K.A off the RG and give it some more room to play. So right now, things very close. 98 HP separating the 2 on the right-hand side, and they both have the same idea. Let's go all in. We'll see who can play better defense here in this final 15 seconds.
And they need to do a really good job on the bottom of the screen of separating out their spells to make sure they're keeping this RG either slowed or knocked back for as long as they can once that Inferno Tower comes off the board. But now SSG going on the heavy offensive both sides of the map.
Split pressure, Lumberjack high onto the Musketeer. Gonna rage up here at the bridge. We'll see if Surge and Canario choose to push anything behind that. Looks like not, and Poison on the left-hand side getting a lot of value.
Yeah, they recognize that log coming down on the right-hand side from, I believe, Surgical Goblin, who's holding it. And then as minute that log is out, they go Goblin Barrel opposite lane, and it is just devastating. Now only 431. We're getting very close to spell cycle range.
Heal Spirit does survive. Royal Giant gonna have to contend with that tower, and that might be 254 left-hand side. Space Station should have this one. Fireball comes in, Poison comes down, and a clean 2-0 to open up their playoff run.
And this is exactly what we were talking about. It really felt like SSG did not even break a sweat in that 2v2 set. And that's not to say that Surge and Canario didn't play well, but it really looked like between the decks and the play style, they were just slightly outclassed. And now this is the moment where it becomes maybe a tipping point in Liquid's favor by a very small percentage as we get into these next 3 1v1 sets.
Take a look at the stats here, courtesy of our friends over at Stats Royale. And yeah, you can see that Canario and Surge were running a 2v2 variation. We've seen RG Giant Skeleton before in 2v2, but now throwing the Fisherman in. Andrew, the one thing I'm surprised about was there was no second piece to the Fisherman to pull and then pop.
Yeah.
You know, usually it's Fisherman P.E.K.K.A, Fisherman Mini P.E.K.K.A, Hunter. We didn't see that second piece here.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe with Team Liquid here, they thought they had enough single target DPS with the Mega Minion, the Dark Goblin, the Lumberjack, but I agree, you know, the Lumberjack was able to pull, or excuse me, the Fisherman was able to pull things away, but that pull and pop, as you're talking about, didn't really happen as much, and maybe it wasn't super necessary, but it felt like whatever they were putting together just wasn't working for Team Liquid. So we're going to take a look at the final moment here, and this is the log I'm talking about. You see the log on the right-hand side? Goblins attack the left at the exact same moment, and then the great thing about this is since the log goes to the right, SSG knows that Liquid has to sell out on the left, so they get a ton of poison value. Then another barrel comes in, a negative trade with the Fireball, and it's just all downhill from there for Team Liquid. I mean, essentially this whole game felt like they were playing from behind.
And you see the right idea with the bats there from Team Liquid trying to pick up the Inferno Tower aggro, but that low placement on the Inferno Tower means that that first one burns off, Giant Skeleton gets in the way, and then you have so many spells to deal with it, get the bats out of the business, and there you have it. Space Station able to put together a solid, competent defense. So this is what we thought they needed, Andrew. We thought they needed that 2v2 set. Obviously, now we're going to have up to 3 1v1 head-to-head best of threes. And I'm really fascinated to see how these ones play out. I mean, you have the more experience over on the Team Liquid side in general, and then on but you have the kind of the youth and the pop over on the Space Station gaming side. I'm very curious to see most specifically how these two coaches decided to put those rosters together and create which actual matchups.
Well, I think what's really interesting about this is let's maybe just put their head-to-head stars aside. Let's say Lapo wins his set, Igor wins his set, because we have to imagine those guys are each going to play one. I think what really comes down to it is the support staff, right? Which of the guys on both squads are going to step up today? Is it going to be Canario? Is it going to be Surge? Is it going to be RF? Will we see Samuel kind of go on that run that we've seen from him on ladder? I think it's really going to come down to the number 2 and number 3 guys, especially if we make it to King of the Hill, because those exact same guys are going to be put on showcase once again to keep their squads alive. So I think the first set in 1v1, it's not a throwaway set by any means, but it is going to be kind of a warm-up, it feels like. So I'm excited to see who's going to come out. Well, either of them, and look at that, Igor does come out for Team Liquid. That is their star in 1v1, and they want to start things off well with him, so maybe he'll come in again. But Samuel Basoto now playing his second 1v1 set this season, Rich.
Let's go ahead and jump into our second set of the match. Spacestation Gaming currently with the advantage. Both of these, two of the top ladder stars in the history of the game. Between them, over 50 top 10 finishes on ladder.
I thought you were going to do something like between them, 17,000 trophies, which I actually feel like is probably an accurate guess.
Let's see. It looks like it's going to be 16,900.
Perfect.
So you're pretty close there.
That'll be on the quiz at the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen, so please make sure you put note on that.
Yeah, I think you Price is Right rules, you actually lost. Sorry, bud.
So here we go, Samuel.
So Samuel, yeah, Samuel looking like he's going Graveyard and Lumber Loon cycle for Igor.
Yeah, Lumber Loon for Igor, and the Skeleton Dragons come down. This could be a hitting ball on the left-hand side. That Royal Delivery is not going to do what Sam needs.
And that's a huge connection to open things up for Igor. This deck was really popular a couple of metas ago when Heal Spirit first got introduced and has not been as popular lately. So very interesting to see it come back around again.
And to use a word that you and I used a lot at the beginning of the season was min-maxing. That was a great use there of the Musketeer high, offset to the right to clean up everything coming across the bridge on the left-hand side, especially because those Skelly Dragons don't do as much damage as they used to. So it wasn't quite as important for Igor to focus there. And then he gets that Musketeer to help clean up these barbs from the barb hut. Very nicely played.
And that's something we're seeing for the first time here in CRL as well. Andrew, the Skeleton Dragons now available for play. Very curious to see how they mix it, and our first 1v1 game, we see them already on the board.
Yeah, so here we go. Log in the back with Lumberjack to help clean that up. Still a decent amount of damage done because of that Knight up front tanking, but Igor's still in a massive 1,400-point lead.
This deck used to run Bomb Tower instead of the Goblin Cage, especially during the very splashy metas where this deck was more popular.
Yeah.
So very curious to see the Goblin Cage mixed in here and how Igor plans to use it to his advantage.
And it is nice to see the Skeleton Dragons not demanding as much of a response as they had been over the last month or so, just doing so much more damage than you'd like for how cheap they were. So Igor, again, happy to take a little bit of damage from those Dragons, as before they used to be so much more intimidating.
And look at the Musketeer protection he's getting down. Probably one more piece here. Snowball does create some room. Log again. The value that Igor's gotten out of that Musketeer and the second one behind it, tremendous. But we'll see now if he can hold up against his Graveyard push. A lot at the bridge, Andrew.
Yeah, both of these guys did an incredible job of protecting their Musketeers. Samuel actually walks away with the W at the bridge there, but Igor's still in a huge lead, and with only 184 damage remaining, you know that he's going to be able to log cycle things out, unless Sam goes absolutely nuts right now, and there's the first log.
Not able to get any tanks across the bridge, and the Musketeer more than apt to do the defense on its own. That's going to be it. Game number 1 goes to Igor in our second set.
And this is exactly what we're kind of expecting, right? Once again, the head-to-head stars of each squad coming out, putting a stamp on it, letting everyone know why they are always in that set when it is a BO3. Samuel, though, still has a game to bounce back, but just has not been the CRL 2020 that we would have expected out of this young star.
Yeah, it's been interesting. You know, this guy's been so good on ladder, but there's a difference in ladder. In ladder, you can repeat the same deck for hours on end, you know, get a rhythm. You talk about ladder players. Some ladder players are very much known for running the same thing the entire time. Yeah. People are actually, decks are named by certain players. So Samuel transitioning from ladder over to competitive, just has never found that same rhythm that you get from grinding the same deck for hours on end.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see how many times we will actually see the Skeleton Dragons. That's what that blank spot is there on Samuel's deck list. I'm very curious to see how many times we'll see that because, you know, we talk a lot about the balance changes. You know, Firecracker didn't seem to be affected too much in the decks that you'd see her, and her usage rate wasn't through the roof by any means, but you talk about the Skeleton Dragon, that rate dropping massively, and then, of course, the Fisherman's increasing. Do you think we'll see a lot more Skelly Dragon today? Again, you've been hosting these tournaments, and you've been seeing a massive drop-off. How do you feel about them now in head-to-head?
I mean, I think, obviously we've seen them already once. I think they're in a fine place. Okay. The question really is, are they in a place where there's not some other card that gets you better utility in the same situation?
Right, do you wonder if you go back to...
question, because before...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, do you go back to Baby Dragon in certain situations? They provided so much DPS previously that it was just, they demanded a response, as you said, during the last game. And also, once you got them stacked up with other troops, it was so difficult to deal with. Yeah. It's not the same situation now. What I'm curious about is if the newly retooled Zappies make their way in today, because what I saw in this last week was a lot of Zappy play in a wide variety of archetypes. So I'm curious to see if that comes in as well.
I hope we do. I think we should, honestly. Zappies are a card that I've always liked in the game. I think they provide such great utility, especially if they get behind a big push or just defensively. But the problem is they just haven't quite been good enough to use competitively on a consistent basis. But it does feel now with the buff, and I've seen friends of ours now pushing top ladder with Zappies in their deck. Zappies and Royal Hogs is the one that I've seen the most of, so I'm very curious if we'll see that or not. But yeah, man, I would love to see more Zappies. I think they did a great job with these balance changes.
Well, you had Igor going kind of older, or a couple metas ago, and then Samuel going pretty new. Let's go into game number 2 and see what kind of looks they give us with their deck choices.
Yeah, I'm excited to see some Fisherman Hunter in the head-to-head play today. Hopefully we'll see a little bit of that.
So both these guys, in terms of their actual CRL careers, don't have a ton of data, but when the data that you have goes heavily in Igor's favor. And this season, 58% win rate between 1v1 and King of the Hill. And of course, don't forget that 5-1 at CRL World Finals for his debut. Basoto, Samuel, now over his 2 seasons, a 35% win rate, not counting that loss from the previous game.
So Sam running it back with the Skelly Dragons and the Royal Delivery.
And it might be Igor going the same way again.
Yeah, very, very interesting deck choices here. Brawler should get 1 punch. Yes, he does.
I'm always curious, Andrew, to see when 2 players run back the exact same matchup they did, to see what kind of adjustments they made. In CRL, I can't remember if this was this season in CRL East or previously in CRL Asia. I think it was this season in East, though. You had Expo Master and Jack back-to-back running the exact same matchup twice, and the adjustments Expo Master made in game number 2 were massive and turned a close loss into a massive win.
Yeah, I mean, it is always really exciting to see mirror matchups, and then, of course, not mirror matchups, but mirror, I guess, game matchups, if that makes sense. You know, running back the exact same deck, seeing those adjustments, and I'm actually kind of surprised that Samuel decided to go with this deck once again, but there's something that he sees that we don't in this deck that he just loves, and right now, Igor are going to sell out in that left-hand lane. That Musketeer should not be able to get to the balloon very easily.
And there you go, delivery. Oh, the delivery played high, so a misplayed delivery gets a connection on the tower. So you saw Samuel decided not to play Barb Hutton single, which he did in game number 1 and probably cost him that early tower. Here he decides to play defense, but that mistimed delivery, I mean, that again could be everything.
And that's a great assessment you make there. Now the Barb Hut comes down, recognizing that Igor's big-time damage in the balloon was out of cycle, so now balloon comes down, Hut's in a set, in a good elixir position, can defend very, very well.
And look, remember in the last game that Samuel did a pretty significant amount of damage. I mean, the problem was he was fighting from behind really early on and put Igor in spell cycle range, even with these 2 small spells. So we'll see if this slightly better start works out even better for him in this one.
Yeah, a lot of coming across the river here, but that Log plus Lumberjack will deal with everything, and Igor still in the lead by about 1,000 HP.
Huge push on the left-hand side. Graveyard in, Lumberjack in the back to try to clean it up. Snowball makes a little bit of room. Poison will get the Musketeer off. And this is going to be a lot of damage here, Andrew. Samuel might be able to take this lead back.
Well, and look at all the units crossing the river right now. You got 2 Barbs, a Musketeer behind, Skeleton Dragons on top. Igor does get a nice Snowball in, but takes a lot of damage and another shot from this Musketeer.
And there you go, just like that, the push does take the lead back for Samuel, and he's already building the second one as that Musketeer takes a second shot. Final minute 40 in sudden death overtime. Graveyard completely overwhelming Igor on the left-hand side. That should be it. The baby dragon, the skeleton dragon belches, and there you have it. We're tied up 1-1.
Well, what's great about this, right, are the adjustments, and that's exactly how you started casting this match, was talking about the adjustments. The first big one was not dropping that Barb Hut. Secondly, he knows what Igor is running, and he knows exactly how he's going to defend his graveyard pushes. Ice Golem up front, Lumberjack behind, Musketeer in the pocket, right? But eventually, if you keep dropping those graveyards time and time again, there's no way for Igor to get back on a real offense, and there's no comfort in something like a poison to 100% mitigate all the damage from that graveyard.
Well, also, the other hard part there for Igor is that snowball. Where do you use it, right? Because you want to use it on offense to make room for the balloon to break through the skeleton dragons. But then also we saw him using that on defense to try to break up those pushes. So wanting the log maybe for the graveyards, the snowball to deal with what part of it, offense or defense. And that's a really great adjustment by Samuel, not playing the Barb Hut early. That's a 7 elixir investment. If you play that in single, that's a big risk to take if you're not already up on elixir.
Yeah, so here we go. We're going to take a look at the first, maybe the first and only misplay here from Samuel, and that was this drop royal delivery, just a tile high. He takes the bomb drop. Musketeer does clean it up, but you could see how confident he was in his defense when he started that sequence, but it was just a very slight misplay on that delivery.
And this one, so here you go. You see having to use the snowball high to break this up, but the snowball doesn't really slow down the push enough. The Musketeer's still plenty alive, the Skeleton Dragons are still plenty alive and able to break through, and then look at this Musketeer take 2 more shots at the end. And at this point, check out the elixir right now, Andrew. Samuel up by about 2 and has plenty on the board as well.
And you see the Musketeer by Igor has to be played high time and time again, still gives poison value, but the reason she has to be played high is because it's the only unit that can actually get on top of his opponent's Musketeer and the Skeleton Dragons. So Igor runs back the same deck. Samuel probably looks at it and goes, great. I made some mistakes in Game 1, mainly that Barb Hut. I know exactly how to pick you apart in Game 2, and this is what it's all about. You know, I talked so much about the head-to-head star from each squad needing to come out and take their respective set. Igor now in a must-win here, or else Liquid goes down 0-2 going into their third set.
And still having Lapakati and RF most likely as the other 2 1v1 sets if you want to extend it to King of the Hill. So, look, Liquid's been in the situation before. If I said it before, if anyone can do this, Liquid can do it, but it's a tough one. Let's go ahead and jump in to the deciding game of our second set.
I have a feeling we will not see those 2 decks again, Richard. Oh!
Well, definitely not seeing one of them. Miner picked up by the Lumberjack. Who knows what Igor's doing this time?
Yeah, maybe Igor goes, there's no way he runs this 3 times in a row, especially after he dominated, or I got dominated in Game 2. Maybe he runs it back again as a bit of a poker move. It's looking like it.
It's certainly feeling like it so far, Andrew. What is going on?
Man, I kind of love the call. If it doesn't play off, obviously, we get to talk about it, no matter how it goes. But right now, I kind of love it.
Well, one thing about Igor is he loves to play the thing that you think he's going to play and just be better than you.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he's known for with Mortar. He outplays people with Mortar when they play counter decks to it. And here he goes, yeah, I won the first one, you won the second one. I'll do it again because I know I can play well with this deck.
And Musketeer does not turn and focus on the balloon. However, the balloon does get picked off the board with the help of the Goblin Cage and the 2 towers there. Very close game to start things off.
Talking about min-maxing, Andrew, I wonder about that log on the left-hand side for the Brawler. How much damage would he really have taken for that 2 elixir? Of course, then you see Igor letting him catch up. So, in the end, turns out to be the right call.
Yeah. So both these guys playing very aggressive decks, but they're playing them quite passively right now, knowing that obviously 1 balloon connection is devastating, and both of them only having 1 air response in the Musketeer.
So check this out. The Lumberjack's going to pop, and Igor goes opposite lane with the Musketeer out of cycle, but the Cage perfectly pulls here. Does he have the snowball available to try to reset this thing one more time? And he does. Perfectly defended by Samuel.
Yeah, Sam still now down a little bit of elixir, but obviously 2 units on the board. Igor plays that Cage just a second early, make sure that Brawler doesn't connect on his left-hand tower, but the Musketeer did not cross the river till after the Brawler popped.
The miner does not quite get there in time. Solid kite on the Ice Golem. Cage should go high one more time, but pulls the Lumberjack back rather than sending the Lumberjack to continue along with the Ice Golem snowball, though. More than up to the task. Will this balloon get a raged up connection?
It does!
That's a huge one. 1309.
What a great snowball from Igor. However, look at what happens on the top left and right side of your screen. Brawler connects on the left, and now a balloon miner push on the right, supported by a Musketeer.
So here we go. On the right-hand side, a lot coming through. A couple shots from the Lumberjack. Brawler up high as well. Brawler's going to get raged up shots. Skeleton's forced out here. Samuel has had to deal with some really tricky balloon work so far from Igor, but has been up to the task at this point. Can he continue the same play?
And Sam goes hard on offense. Igor not being able to support his balloon because he had to take the Musketeer off the board on the right. Both of these guys doing a great job of splitting their opponent's attention, and now Sam in the lead on the top right-hand side of your screen.
Lumberjack gets the Musketeer got quite a lot for Samuel on that last one. So we have the general defensive sequence here for Samuel, and chooses not to play the snowball and take the death damage on the left-hand side. Maybe setting up for balloon on the right. Here we go.
He sure is. He's going to try to save that snowball to get on top of that Musketeer. Goblin Cage is going to come in late, most likely. Where's the Goblin Cage? Where is it?
The Cage just barely saves it, but that balloon drops, and that's going to be it. Samuel takes the second set for Space Station.
Sam comes out for his second 1v1 set this entire season in playoffs and takes down Team Liquid's 1v1 star in Igor. SSG up 2-0 in quarterfinals.
What an unbelievable game, an unbelievable set overall. The great adjustment from Samuel in game number 2, and then in game number 3, Igor really felt like he had Samuel a couple of times with that split lane pressure, and the Goblin Cage Musketeer combination to set up the snowball to support was brilliant from Samuel over and over again.
Yes, brilliant is the key word for these plays. We recognize that snowball was saved. What a display of patience and efficiency by Samuel. He does not play that snowball on defense knowing he's got it cleaned up. Worst case, he takes that bomb drop and he's got the damage to spare. So what does he do? Saves the snowball, uses it on offense against the Musketeer, waiting for that late Goblin Cage, just perfectly executed by the Space Station Gaming representative.
And he plays that Cage high. He knows to pull it over. The Musketeer in range to support. This is nice. And he did this over and over again. And it was an inexpensive way to force Igor to play defense himself.
Yeah, it was really inexpensive, and it also made it so that these death damage, 300, 400 damage doesn't come in every single time that there is a balloon push, whereas on the other side of it, Igor took a lot more death damage than Sam.
And look at this, back to another Musketeer. And this is the one where he chooses to go ahead and take the death damage and now have 2 units on the board, a significant portion of Elixir, and this was the balloon that ended the game.
Yeah, that balloon comes in on the left-hand side. He takes that 300, a great log to stop the Heal Spirit and the Lumberjack. His own Musketeer supports the defensive Musketeer. Snowball comes in to slow things down. Cage off the map. Beautiful 1 HP sliver drop from the balloon there for Space Station and Samuel Basoto to go up 2-0. Liquid now in a must-win set.
Yeah, not just a must-win set, Andrew. 3 must-win sets. Yeah. They have to win 1v1, then 1v1, then King of the Hill. Can it happen? Yeah. Have they done crazier things? Maybe, but man, look at who you have to go through now. You know in these 2 1v1 sets, it's a combination of RF and Lapicati, and then if you get to King of the Hill, you've run through all of that, and you still have to beat RF, Lapicati, and Samuel again. So a very, very difficult spot for Team Liquid here. And, considering their season the way it's been, it's not altogether surprising.
Yeah, and you wonder, lineups are set the night before. We get the lineups the night before. Well, League Ops gets the lineups the night before. We don't get anything. And, those lineups being set, you wonder if Team Liquid decided with this second 1v1 set, did they put someone with ice in their veins? Did they put in a knockout player? Like, who did they put in this set? Did they think they were going to have a set in hand coming into this? Or did they think they were going to be backs against the wall? And I'll be honest with you, I bet it's the prior. I bet you they thought they at least picked up either the 1v1 or the 2v2. Now whoever comes out in this third set, it's all eyes, all pressure on them, and we know it's not Igor.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. We know it's not Igor. And Andrew, we know that Canario, that there's 2 guys who tend to be the third player in King of the Hill, in Canario and Diego B, who tend to alternate that role. The question is, do they do that same sort of thing here? Are one of those two guys the third 1v1 set, or one of those two guys coming up right now?
Yeah, and you talk about Team Liquid, and we have seen basically zero head-to-head play from the GOAT, from Surgical Goblin. And here we go. It's going to be Diego B all on the line against Lapacati, who is SSG's home run hitter in that 1v1 set. But, people sleep on Diego. He's got ice in his veins in some of the most crucial moments in CRL history.
And Diego, we talk about him in the 1v1 set, hasn't played in the last 2 seasons, but overall in the 1v1 set, 8-2 in games, 4-0 in sets, so the guy certainly has plenty of success here. So a much slower start here, Andrew, and a little bit of cycle from Lapacati, just the Skelly Dragon so far.
Okay, so Diego decides to leak a bunch of elixir and then save his Royal Delivery to take off the barrel. So I thought maybe he DC'd or something, but looks like he was just happy to take a little bit of damage.
Well, both of these guys making a little bit of leakage just to make better defensive decisions, and you see Diego B timing that delivery perfectly on that Goblin barrel, and that timing isn't easy, but it's not impossible. You don't have to predict it. Some people say you have to predict that Goblin barrel, but you don't have to hover it. As long as you're really quick on the fingers with it, you can get it. And you'll see Diego is probably going to miss only 1 or 2 of those at most.
That was another great example of exactly what you're talking about. And I did want to point out that Diego had a really nice defense there with the Skeletons plus the Skeleton Dragons to mitigate almost 100% of damage from that Skeleton barrel and create a nice little counter push. However, down a little bit of damage here, Lapacati basically untouched.
Yeah, I mean, this is a challenging deck to be running no true small spell with for Diego, so, it's going to be a cycle issue. The time when he will miss some of those barrels with the delivery are times like this, when either it's out of cycle or he doesn't have the elixir for it. Other than that, he should be able to get those pretty well, but the other spell being poison, you're going to see more and more damage chip away here for Lapa.
Yeah, and 1500 is kind of a magic number we talk a lot about with decks that succeed in overtime, or in double elixir time. It would be obviously running one of them, most likely here with the Graveyard. Taking a good amount of damage early on, but he's not anywhere is unrecoverable. Sometimes we'll see people down to 500-600 damage in single, and that seems brutal to come back from. Diego not in the case, and with 2 bar putts on the board.
Yeah, quite a lot of bar putts. I mean, this Graveyard deck has been the most played deck so far of the playoffs. 3rd time out. So people are really liking this one right now, and we'll see if Diego B can make this Graveyard deck go 2-1, or if it's going to fall to 1-2. So far, Lapacati with the lead, but that Musketeer going to get a couple big shots on the left-hand side.
And you see here Lapacati cycling that Dark Goblin in the back left-hand side. You have to imagine it's because he was maybe looking for that Graveyard to finally come out from Diego. That is going to be Lapo's best response to a Graveyard, is going to be the Goblin or the Dark Goblin behind the King Tower or on the back of the map.
Here we go, sudden death overtime, and still 2 bar putts on the board. Lapacati, plenty of elixir, but look at all the stuff that Diego has on the board right now. So much to contend with, and the Dark Goblin distracted. How does Lapacati defend this Graveyard on the right-hand side?
So he gets that Royal Delivery down. Dark Goblin will get poisoned off the board. Musketeer demanding a little bit on the left-hand side. This might be a moment where Lapacati starts to get a little bit overwhelmed, but we'll see.
The longer that Dark Goblin can stay on the board, the better it is for Lapo, so we'll see how much value he can get out of each one of those. Of course, same can be said about his opponent's Musketeer. Final minute, 20 seconds. Lapacati still with a significant lead, but he's playing the chip game, and Diego B's playing the haymaker game.
Yeah, and that was a great use of the Skeletons there to mitigate all the damage on the top right-hand side of the screen, preserve the HP of these units crossing the river, and now Diego goes back on the offensive. Dark Goblin sitting right in the middle of that poison, but no tank.
Dark Goblin on about 4 elixir lead for Diego B, and a full-on double bait push on the left-hand side. Delivery gets there a half-second late.
A half-second late, and takes the Skelly barrel drop there, Rich.
Oh, and that drop damage is huge. And this time, Diego now switching lanes here. He has this opportunity. He has this option much more than Lapo has to change up where the game's taking place based on his counter pushes, and that was a nice chunk there. Going to get under 1,300 HP, and again, Diego switches lanes.
Yeah, Lapo goes opposite lane as well, with only 242 HP remaining on that top left-hand tower. A decent Graveyard push, but not a lot. Skeletons connect on the top right. Lapacati now gets to pick where he wants to close this game out.
And a good game comes out for Diego, and that's going to be it. Lapacati now has Space Station Gaming 1 win away from semifinals.
What beautiful patience by Lapacati, knowing that his opponent, the only way his opponent was going to win that game was by getting a massive, massive graveyard down, and Lapo did a great job of cycling units in the back, barreling when he had a little bit of extra elixir. He never carelessly cycled. Every cycle he made was a great decision, whether it was a knight in the back, whether it was a barrel on the right, whether it was just skellies or a log. It was all so well played, and there you see the last card from Lapo, not even played, was that Inferno Tower.
When you see Lapacati switching lanes, and that lane switch, just as I'm talking about how Diego B has more viability for a lane switch than Lapo does, that lane switch did two things. It put some damage on that tower, but it also stuck those baby dragons way in the back there and didn't let them get up and become a part of that graveyard play on the right-hand side. So it forced those units to stay back there and play some defense while also doing some good damage with some of the best responses out of cycles. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these final moments, Andrew.
Yeah, the Dark Goblin was just a massive, massive part of Lapacati's success, because even when in moments like this, when it would be spelled off the board, he did a great job of catching units at the top, at the bridge, making sure there were no tanks, and then another Dark Goblin was able to come back down outside of the poison and defend the rest of that graveyard. So mainly what I think is so cool about this bait deck is how quickly it cycles back around to your incredibly high DPS card in the Dark Goblin. So he's able to kind of cycle it, not carelessly, but in the sense of, for instance, when you play Mortar Bait holding Dark Goblin and you're playing against Graveyard, you've got to have that Dark Goblin as a response 100% of the time. Lapacati with such a great quick cycle, and his patience was able to always have it on the board when he needed.
Yeah, brilliant. You see there, he puts the Goblin Barrel and Skelly Barrel on the right-hand side. The Skelly Dragons have to come out, so on defense, they aren't a great response to either, which is why you saw so much damage, and then not able to be used as part of any graveyard push. So huge play from Lapacati, and now Andrew, Team Liquid, with their backs very much up against the wall. Match point for Space Station. Let's go. Game number 2 of our third set.
So here we go. Diego B gives the thumbs up. Lapo gives the good luck. All pressure on Team Liquid right now. Lapacati can sit back, relax, and know that he's got a game hand and 2 sets in hand.
So Hunter to the right-hand side. We'll see if Diego is going Fisherman Hunter with that combination. Lapacati also with the Firecracker to the right-hand side. You might be seeing some somewhat similar looks from these two teams.
Yeah, so now Lapo goes Prince left-hand lane, seeing that the Hunter and a bunch of Elixir was spent on the right. Might just eat this Hunter. He does, and Royal Hogs come down.
Skeletons just by themselves, enough to defend, and there you go, King Tower activation, so it is Fisherman Hunter. I believe Diego B might be running this Royal Giant deck. I don't remember if Heal Spirit is a part of it, but I believe this is the one. And we'll see if he chooses to RG and single or not, or waits until later. Does have the Fireball for the Royal Hogs, Andrew, but going to be challenging with having to deal with the Firecracker as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big part of it, is that Firecracker, and how do you get to the Firecracker without using the Fireball. And if you do use the Fireball, you stop the Royal Hogs, right? Because you can't stop all of them with the Fisherman. And, conversely, again, that Firecracker is so hard to get to without the use of the Fireball. And we'll see right now just exactly how Diego wants to deal with it.
Skeletons, Bats, and Firecracker up high. Heal Spirit does get a couple extra shots. 1 shot out of the Royal Giant, but so much DPS takes it off the board. Right now, 3 on the board for Lapacati, 2 extra in the hole for Diego as we approach double elixir time.
And I love the change to the Firecracker. I'm glad they didn't touch her damage. I think just the knockback was something that could create such massive positive trades and, of course, create a counter push. So I like what the balance team has done here to the change in Firecracker.
You see Lapo just a little bit ahead there, so cycles the log and sets up Firecracker to get behind this Ice Golem. Fisherman, though, does not target the Ice Golem, targets the Firecracker.
And look at that. The knockback of the Firecracker makes so the Fisherman's able to get back on top. RG, pretty healthy RG on the tower, going to get at least a few shots in.
This is a rough sequence here for Lapacati, and you're seeing the combination of Fisherman and Hunter. Diego has not put them right on each other yet, but doesn't want to give so much value. And again, Fisherman high this time.
Nice use of the Heal Spirit there again. Seeing those bats up high, it's going to pop instantly, giving a little bit of legs to that Royal Giant. Royal Giant gets another shot in. Lapacati now behind. You know, Diego doing a great job kind of recognizing the way that Lapo wants to go on offense and the way he wants to defend and kind of picking it apart now.
Split lane pressure here from Lapacati. Fisherman one lane, Hunter in the other. Cycles his Prince way in the back and is happy to let that Prince go right up and take care of the Fisherman. Ice Golem does protect from the pull here, but a second one down for Diego.
Massive utility from that Ice Golem. Not only does it help with the push there, but also pops to clean up the bats, giving a little bit more life to this Prince on the left-hand side. Royal Hogs go down in the right. And this is a slugfest right now.
Log does reset. Nice Ice Golem high from Lapacati to turn things around. Does he protect the Prince from being pulled one more time? Decides not to. Skeletons do get in the way. Fisherman completely healthy, or fairly healthy now. Heal Spirit does get it even bigger, and this is huge. Fisherman pulling so much away from that Royal Giant on the left-hand side.
The bats and the skeletons almost working against Lapacati because they're dropped so high so regularly that Diego B doesn't even have to really think about when he wants to play his Heal Spirit. So we'll see if Lapo ends up wanting to use that log to take the Heal Spirit off the board, or if he's going to continue to have to use the log to knock back the Royal Giant late. And there it is once again. High Heal Spirit, late log. RG still gets a shot in.
Diego B ties things up. Beautiful play. The Fisherman coming through. Huge MVP of game number 2. And that might have... It's the potential, at least for the moment, to extend Liquid's season.
Yeah, that is a massive, massive moment for Team Liquid, breathing just a little bit of life back into the World Champions, but still has to take one more game off of Lapacati, and then, of course, 2 more sets off Spacestation. So you see here, Lapo on the left running those Royal Hogs. Prince with Firecracker not quite paying off the way that he'd like, just not having enough responses to this Royal Giant, whether it was keeping it at bay, having a building, getting that Fisherman off the board. Just so many great, great sequences put together by Diego B.
Well, you look at how those bridge battles go down, Andrew. You made one really great point that you're trying to protect the Prince or the Firecracker with the Ice Golem or the Skeletons, but that gives Heal Spirit value over and over again. The Hunter able to clear things off. The Fisherman able to pull stuff away. Just really brutal in terms of trying to win bridge battles for Lapo. A thing that he really did very, very rarely.
Yeah, and there it was right again. You know, high bats to help get some damage on that RG very, very quickly. Heal Spirit comes in, and that allows, once again, the Royal Giant to get a shot on the tower, and that was the name of the game. From basically the first moment it started to happen, Diego B kind of recognized, all right, I need to stay alive just long enough to keep putting these sequences together because I'm going to win the damage game. I really, really am. My Royal Giant is going to beat out those Royal Hogs.
And notice how he's splitting the Hunter and the Fisherman rather than playing them together. A lot of people will play, and it works all of the time in certain situations, right? The Hunter directly in front of the Fisherman, so when the Fisherman pulls, the Fisherman does not get hit. The Hunter goes kaboom, knocks it off. But in this situation, you saw him mostly splitting those two, letting the Fisherman pull stuff into the backfield, and the Hunter work to help win those bridge battles. That was key here for Diego B to win that game.
It's one of those moments, right? Home run's always more fun to watch, but sometimes a bunt right down the left-hand side is going to be what gets you on base and gets you the win, and that's exactly what this situation felt like. Yes, it's more exciting to see a big, knockout play, but that bunt is really, really what brought home the W. So here we go. Once again, Team Liquid backs against the wall. Third and final game of this 1v1 set.
Diego B has been with Team Liquid for all 4 seasons of Clash Royale League. Of course, he's spent some time with a variety of organizations in Clash Royale, and particularly spent a lot of time with Team Queso before assembling the super team at Liquid when Surgical Goblin called him up and said, hey, I think we could win CRL. Didn't happen in that first season, but of course now they've gone all the way, become Western and World Champions.
And that was a pretty cool sequence there to see if you have not played Fisherman a lot. Fisherman completely mitigating those wall breakers for a -1 trade, but a counter push behind. Oh, that's a big zap.
Miner all the way in the back. Oh, my word. Oh, there you go. The arrows come out. That's going to be a ton of damage, though.
Ooh.
Look at how spread out that was. Miner low, the Skeleton Barrel, and the Dart Goblin, and arrows really not able to get much of anything.
What I loved there was that Diego zapped those bats off the board to make sure that more needed to come out to clean up the Dark Goblin, so then he gets the arrows to come in, Dark Goblin not touched by him, Miner tanking for the Dark Goblin, and we all know how much damage that can do.
Lapo now going Miner spears the opposite direction. Does get a little bit of chip damage on the right-hand side as we cross the midway point of regulation, though. It is Diego B in the lead, 12:42 to 2020.
And once again, here we go. Push on the left-hand side, zap high, Fisherman behind, Miner on the tower, wall breakers to Kite. That's going to be tough. Miner's going to get a good amount of chip damage.
Yeah, that's a rough one there, and the Fisherman does not go to the tower. Lucky for Lapacati, 8:52 on the left-hand side. He's got to figure out some other way to deal with the Skeleton Barrel and to use those bats, because right now the bats are getting nothing done on the defensive side of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Diego B's doing a great job of knowing when to zap, when to let the Skelly Barrel pop and take care of things. So here we go. Wall breakers on the right-hand side, high Spear Goblins to clean that up.
45 seconds left. Miner goes to the outside, and again, this time Bat's going to the Miner, but the zap is just ready. Diego B is a mile ahead of him every time so far.
And you see right here, he plays those bats up high to support the Skeleton Barrel. No zap there, and Lapacati doesn't want to have to use his arrows because he needs Elixir to go back on the offense, and that's exactly what we're talking about, but now giving a lot of value to the Mega Knight.
And might even zap this off here. Miner goes to the bag. Everything's being tanked for.
Pretty good push here from Lapacati.
Wall breakers do go and get one big connection.
But that Miner, bottom left-hand side of your screen, just chipping away and looking like Diego B might steal this one after the reverse sweep.
Yeah, he only does have the zap for direct tower damage, so we'll see. Is there an Inferno Tower to pull that back up high? Yes, there is. So Lapacati currently holding on by the skin of his teeth. 124. We're getting closer to triple, Andrew. We'll see if Diego holds on to that zap to take care of the bats or starts playing a couple of those on tower.
Love the arrows there to clean the Dark Goblin off, but then we go Mega Knight at the bridge. Bats on both sides. Miner does get picked up. There's the zap, and that's going to do it.
Diego B comes through huge, and this is a big one for him, Andrew. We know Diego B has had some tough moments in the big ones, right? Especially was not happy, even with being a world champion. Wasn't happy with his performance at World Finals. Getting a big win like this with his team's season on the line against Lapacati, huge for Diego B.
I mean, that's exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of this set, right? Diego B is a guy that has time and time again, in very, very high pressure situations, pulled off the W. And yes, obviously, like you said, there's been moments where he's fallen, but he's found himself in these incredibly high-pressure elimination situations time and time again, and today showcases once again why Diego B is one of the best in the world, why Liquid has held on to him for as long as they have, and once again, why he was in that second 1v1 set instead of Canario or Surgical Goblin.
Let's take a look at some of the action from that last one, and Diego B able to pull off the reverse sweep in the third set, and the pressure was just relentless. Diego really had his number, the zap being the key factor, and you'll see one more time here, Mega Knight high tanking. And the only response you have once that Knight comes down is to throw some spears and some bats. Spears get down, they get taken off. Zap, gone, tower down.
There's just so much zappable stuff without a zap, right? You know, you've only got arrows, you're going to make a lot of negative trades, and either way, you've only got arrows. How you deal with the barrels, how you deal with the bats, how you deal with anything, you know, and that was basically what happened. Was Diego B recognizes what spell power his opponents had and made him really, really pick and choose where to use those arrows. And Lapo did his best he could with the arrows, but the biggest thing is when those pushes are layered the way that they are, there's no way to get an arrows on all three of the layers. And we saw it time and time again, whether it was bats up close or Dark Goblin behind.
Well, he was never able to force Diego to play the zap on defense. The zap was always available on offense to clean up, whether it was the bats or the spear goblins. Never once was there a pressure situation where Diego was, oh no, I have to use this zap here. And so he had the choice. And that's what was happening here, was that Diego B got to make all the choices, and Lapo had to react to those choices.
Yeah, that's a really good
So here
point.
we go. Now Team Liquid takes a set. And Andrew, we'll see the rosters here in just a moment for that fourth set. In my opinion, the pressure is actually on Spacestation here more than it's on Team Liquid.
Well, you know,
Team Liquid's kind of like, look, if we could win here, we could not, who knows? But Spacestation, I feel like if they lose this, there's a mental challenge that they take going into King of the Hill.
Completely agreed. To interrupt, I was just going to say it's such a momentum game. And we talk a lot about momentum and why that 2v2 set is so important in BO3 sets. But now here in BO5, it almost feels like that 2v2 set was ages ago. It feels like it was yesterday. And this big 1v1 win from Diego B, it breathes a lot of life and confidence back into Liquid, and it's a little bit demoralizing for SSG. Now, I know that the players, and I know their coach, and I know that it's not going to get to them as much as it may some other people, but that was a moment to close things out. 3-0 Team Liquid, and now you've got Canario back on the podium. Now you've got Surgical Goblin and Igor back in the works if they do go to King of the Hill. But here we go. RF, Canario, and you and I celebrate RF in head-to-head play.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a phenomenal 2020. Number 1 at the CWA Cup, number 2 at the Game History Cup, number 1 at the Red Bull MEO for USA, not to mention his great ladder performances. RF has had a phenomenal 2020. This win right here could be a year-defining moment for the God RF.
And just to remind you guys at home, Canario, he's got a pretty good 1v1 win percentage as well at 81%. Yes, that was all garnered in his very first season, but still, 81% in 1v1. Very, very impressive. 66% in head-to-head, which brings in a lot more games.
First 30 seconds down, pointing off the Hunter is Canario. Giant Skeleton sets up all the way in the back for the God RF.
I like what I'm seeing so far from the God RF. And we see double dragons coming out for Canario.
Fisherman to pull to the opposite side. This minor loom with Giant Skeleton has been fairly popular in this last week as this new meta begins to take shape. We'll see how RF does with it. A huge balloon connection on the right-hand side.
An excellent snowball. And then the High Hunter plus the Skeletons. RF knew exactly what he needed for defense, and he had it in spades. What a great sequence there by the Spacestation Gaming player.
A little bit of burn, but not going to get in the second phase. 1806 to the right-hand side, 1240 for Canario from the Canary Islands. First season with G2. Since then, wearing the blue of Team Liquid.
I'm very curious to see on the next sequence with the Giant Skeleton if we see high skellies from the God RF to distract the Fisherman.
Nice little chunk of damage on the right-hand side here. Again, 893 remaining on that tower as we hit the final minute 15. It is Lava Loon Miner with Fisherman here for Canario, or Lava Miner with Fisherman. Very interesting. Obviously, the more common piece instead of Fisherman might be Barbs or Guards or even a Skarmy in some cases. Fisherman is a really unique piece in this pot.
Wow, really nice late zap there to help get a bunch of damage on this bottom left-hand tower. Canario doing exactly what we're expecting from him, which is putting together really deeply thought-out sequences and picking his opponent's defense apart, and that is why you see as much damage as you do on that left-hand tower.
Inferno Tower not in cycle, Inferno Dragon, so Canario's going to have to eat this. Tower's going to be down on the right-hand side. The big question now is this a tower trade situation? Lava Hound down, Inferno Dragon. That Giant Skeleton's going to clean up a lot at the bridge, though, Andrew.
Yeah, RF doing a great job recognizing the Fisherman's already out of cycle. That Giant Skeleton is not going to go anywhere other than where our RF wants. And now we see the Miner on defense, just waiting for that lava to pop to throw in the snowball, but taking forever to get off the board.
446 on the left-hand side. A Miner going to have to come in and hope it doesn't get picked up. Fisherman will get on the Miner, does not pull the Miner away, so a second one has to come down here for the God RF. That's going to be it, though. RF takes game number 1 over Canario.
And RF throwing out a little bit of BM there at the end, knowing that if Canario just had a couple more seconds, we would be going to a 2-tower game. RF misses the pull on the Fisherman at the end. He sends in the Miner on defense, gives the poison value, but just seconds behind is Team Liquid's Canario, and once again, back up against the ropes against Spacestation Gaming.
Yeah, but this is one of those guys, Andrew. If there is a person who I feel like is best in this win or go home moment, Canario's the one.
Yeah.
We've talked about him a lot. Going back to Season 1 with CRL EU, where we've seen him play out of situations where it seemed dire and dead, and we almost saw that happen here. Very nearly Canario got back in this one here, if not for just a couple of seconds where it ticked away. So For Team Liquid, I'm happy this is the guy on the podium at this moment. I just wish it wasn't this moment.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. He is definitely a guy that can, get himself out of any corner, but the one sequence there, and it was hard to even call it a misplay by Canario, but it was just the fact that the Fisherman was already on the board, and he was going all in on that left-hand side with the Fisherman right there. RF knew he could drop that Giant Skeleton right at the bridge and stop this massive push that Canario would have most likely taken the tower.
And here you have the Inferno Dragon on that left-hand side, so easy choice from the God RF. Balloon, Miner, you're spending about the same. You're spending not that much more. Go ahead, get that tower down, and be done with it. And at that point, with the Fisherman having to walk all the way up to the bridge, as you were talking about, Andrew, this Giant Skeleton cleans it all up. GG, well played. And a second match point here for Space Station.
Well, the very first balloon push that RF put down, he saw how his opponent was going to defend, right? The best way to defend was Baby Dragon up top to body block and get a little DPS on, Inferno Dragon behind to get that sizzle and the true single target DPS that you need. But then a snowball comes in and ruins everything. It knocks both of them off, resets the Inferno, slows the tower, balloon connects. So a really, really tough place for Canario to be in when you talk about air defense, and RF, again, just sneaking by with a couple seconds to spare to take that one tower win.
Well, that's the hard part when you're playing something like Lava and you're going for a tower trade, you think you've got it, and then you don't get the tower trade. And that's what we saw here. We saw the tower trade not pull off for Canario, and now he's down one game, and the big question here is, does RF go with something really comfortable here in game number 2? Do we see Splash Yard from one of the greats to ever play it? Or does he go with something that maybe he thinks Canario's never seen before?
It's so tough because as much as I want to see RF play a graveyard deck, I feel like maybe it's the latter. Maybe it's something that's really, really popped up to be devastatingly strong in the new meta since it is so fresh. Maybe he goes that way just because so many people would expect him to play graveyard, so maybe they play a deck that could defend against graveyard and, you know what I mean? Like, not just focus on graveyard, but one that can deal with it pretty handily, even if it's just with a poison instead of a fireball.
Well, one thing we have seen a lot, Andrew, is people really digging into the new meta decks, in particular that Royal Giant Hunter Fisherman deck, the deck that we just saw, that Giant Skeleton Miner Loon deck from RF. These are decks that have been popular everywhere for competitive play this week. So it's very curious to see that they are kind of digging right into it and embracing it so quickly. But on the other side of course, you have Igor ran that Lumberloon heal deck twice. So it's been a fun day already. Bud.
Absolutely, and now we're seeing bait looking like it on both sides of the board. Skelly Barrel left, Goblin Barrel right.
Delivery timing on that Skeleton Barrel maybe a little bit easier. You get some more time to set up that delivery on the Skeleton Barrel than on the Goblin Barrel, and looking very similar on both sides.
Yeah, I really like what you said in that matchup with Diego, where he was really forced to play that Royal Recruit perfectly every single time, and it's pretty impossible, especially when you get in double and triple elixir time. Your opponent is attacking you from both sides of the board. It feels nearly impossible to hit that Royal delivery 100% of the time.
Here in this situation, though, Andrew, both of them, the big question is going to be about keeping their cycle proper, right? You have the log. The log is what you want to be playing on that Goblin Barrel, and the delivery is what you want to be playing on that Skeleton Barrel. The question is, who can force the other person to switch to mix those up and be playing the right thing at the wrong time?
That was an incredible sequence of defense by the God RF. It really, really was. He got the Knight high, just high enough to get on top of the Dark Goblin that was supported by his opponent's Knight. The Royal Delivery goes low. It was just absolutely astounding, and he took 0 damage.
So here we go. Skeleton Barrel aggressive from Canario. And you see delivery there. The difference is Canario didn't take drop damage with his delivery on the Skeleton Barrel. The God RF did, so that's another factor to think about here, Andrew, is that Skeleton Barrel drop damage as time goes on.
Yeah, and that definitely does add up, just the way that logs do.
Things slowing down here a bit at the end of single elixir.
Canario feels like he needs to fix his cycle just a hair, whereas the God RF feels like it's in perfect position to defend and create offense.
That's a big part of mirror matches, is getting that cycle down correctly, and Right now, it seems like Canario might have gotten himself back in
Yeah,
rhythm.
absolutely. That's a really, really big bridge battle to win. Here we go. Log low, going to clean everything up. But that's the way that RF has been playing these sequences. He's looking into his opponent's mind, knowing, once again, because it's a mirror matchup, you know the best way to put together the best offense with what's on the board. And RF is expecting every move out of Canario. I'm wondering if Canario plays something maybe a little unorthodox just to throw RF off rhythm.
Well, he didn't use the log on the previous defense, and now both delivery and log on that skeleton barrel. So, a little rough here for Canario. This is the second Goblin Barrel in a row that's made a connection for the God RF.
That's a lot of royal delivery value up top there. You can imagine he's going to go for it. Yes, he does, and he gets the triple drop around the tower. Skelly's in the back, Knight on the left, Dark Goblin still on the board on the right. And once again, just magnificent defense from Spacestation.
And now you see RF doing what Canario was doing, using the log to get a little bit of offensive pressure, get the Dark Goblin off the board. The difference is this time it's working out phenomenally for RF, has not worked out as well for the Liquid player.
And there we go. Once again, perfect sequence of defense by RF, coming about 1,000 HP in the lead now, and now has the luxury of using his log on offense, but misses the Dark Goblin.
Yeah, Andrew, that missed Dark Goblin could be huge and big value for Canario the opposite direction, but the God RF does have a very significant lead at the moment, and now Canario's switching lanes.
Yeah, that was a 9 elixir log that Canario just dropped. Dark Goblin behind the Skelly Barrel. Now log comes in to clean up both. It is a decent blow there by Canario, but RF goes, look, man, I've already got so much damage on the left-hand side.
Here we go, Skeleton, the Goblins do connect, huge on the left-hand side one more time. RF waiting on that delivery, giving up a ton of damage, but in a good position on the left-hand side. Here we go, final minute, triple elixir on its way, 180 remaining for Canario to keep Team Liquid
RF
alive.
now does not have log and cycle, gonna have to go delivery low, there it is. Now gonna have to play something up high to get on top of that Dark Goblin, while that Skelly Barrel works his way across the map. Skelly Barrel drops, that's damage, 70 in, just needs a log. Log not going to be available.
There you go. G, well played. Canario tries to steal it back, but the God RF seals the deal. Space Station is going to the semifinals.
And just like that, our CRL World Champions have been eliminated in the West by Space Station with a 3-1 dominant victory today. Diego B kept him alive for just a moment, but the 2v2 was unstoppable, and RF comes back out in that fourth set to close out Team Liquid.
Man, what the God RF did in the opening portion of that match, the way he really dealt with Canario and put him in uncomfortable positions. Eventually, Canario got it back into a certain amount of rhythm, but at that point, you're playing from behind, trying to chip back into the game. You have to take some risks. Canario took those risks, but they just weren't enough.
Yeah, and RF did an incredible job of just varying up his defenses, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Look at that. Knight high, delivery low. Skelly's to the right to help clean up the Knight. Log back in cycle. Brilliant defense, and you even see a little bit of BM from a spectator, because you look at that and you go, how the hell are you going to defend 100% of this damage? Well, RF is going to show you.
And this is what started happening. You saw Canario a few times before this sequence began, playing his log offensively to get Dark Goblins out of the way, hoping for a big blow. So maybe Canario got a little overeager early in this one, didn't have the log available on defense, had to go for troop support to deal with the with the drops from the Goblin Barrel, and you saw like 2 or 3 times on the left-hand side that Goblin Barrel got some clean shots on that tower.
And there you see, here at the very end of the game, this is where RF is really okay giving away a lot of damage on that right-hand side. He's already taken over 1,000 in just the last minute, but that's okay, because here you see Skelly Barrel drop on the left, log comes in, a little bit of BM from RF, and that is going to be it. Space Station Gaming will be playing against Tribe, the undefeated Tribe, tomorrow.
One thing you notice there at the end, Andrew, is that RF, rather than play it safe and put the log on defense, he throws the Goblin Barrel on defense and log on offense. Why? Because he knows the Goblin Barrel will be enough to stop that tower from falling, and the log will guarantee the win, rather than the opposite way where you do everything to wipe that push off the board and maybe get the shot, the killing blow on the other side. So Nice sequence there from RF to finish things off, and as you said, they have a big task tomorrow up against the team that didn't lose a single set all season in Tribe
Yeah,
Gaming.
guaranteed to win. I love that you point that out because there's so many moments in Clash where you have to make decisions that you think will pay off, that you think, I think I should defend this, I think I can take the tower. But when you watch pros play, they only go for guarantees. I know that if I defend, I will not lose. I don't know if I'll take this tower. I know that if I go for this tower, I will have enough to defend and I will win the game. It's all about those guaranteed decisions that are made by professionals that you and I are not so great at making when the pressure is up. And that is one reason you saw right there. The Goblin Barrel on defense, the Log on offense, RF knew exactly what the outcome was going to be, and a brilliant, brilliant display of decision-making from all of SSG today.
Well, let's talk about Samuel for a moment, who really has never had his shining moment here in CRL. Today's a big one. Not just taking a win, but taking a win over Igor in the 1v1 set to set up the rest of his team to close things out. That's a big confidence boost, and if he can continue to play like that against Tribe Gaming, that matchup becomes much, much closer.
Well, you know Trainer Luis has the utmost faith in his 2v2 duo, so putting Sam in that very first spot goes, look, worst case scenario, we're 1-1. Best case scenario is we have a guy that hasn't played a ton of head-to-head, establish his footing, and also from here on out puts Liquid in a position to always be at match point. So worst case scenario, you're 1-1. Best case scenario, you've got Sam out of the play, you've got a win in the books, and Liquid is back against the ropes for the rest of the match.
Well, one of the things about Trainer Luis, if you bring him up, is his faith in converting ladder players into competitive players. So much so, he just put on Twitter the other day that he's looking for a team of unknown or of non-CRL ladder players to put in the big Spacestation invitational or open team event. This is what he believes in. He knows if you have those skills, you can convert them, he'll make it happen. That's it, guys. We'll be back in just a few minutes with our second match of the day.
Hello, CRL fans. We heard you were looking for some nail-biting Clash Royale gameplay. Well, you came to the right place. Welcome to the top 5 plays from CRL 2020, week number 4. The crowning of our 2020 champions are right around the corner, so make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be one of the first to see who it is. Our first play is by Diego E, where he sweeps all of Chivas Esports and King of the Hill. In the first match on the hill, it's coming down to the last few seconds of overtime, and both players start unloading their spells. Diego E, however, edges out a victory against Pompeo with the Tornado spell. In this 2v2 match of Spacestation Gaming versus Misfits Gaming, Crap and the God RF have a huge lead, but that all changes when Razor's Mini P.E.K.K.A pops off, thanks to a Heal Spirit and Rage spell. It actually gets pushed out of the way by SSG's Fireball, causing it to target the E-Wiz instead. 3 Mini P.E.K.K.A swings later, and it's a whole new game, leading to Misfits' 2v2 victory. It's the Tribe Gaming versus Dignitas 2v2 match. Dignitas has a considerable lead, but thanks to this perfect massive value lightning and a rage spell that devours a mini P.E.K.K.A, Tribe Gaming steamrolls a 2-crown victory. Up next, Surge TS could not lose on this day. In this final match between him and Ruben to send Pain Gaming to the King of the Hill, Surge TS plays a perfect Goblin Barrel to an unorthodox position, which gets him just enough damage to seal his victory with a rocket. On to the next play highlight, Jupiter King returns with his fearsome dual lane push that demands multiple answers that Lindsay just doesn't have. Does Lindsay Mega Knight the Royal Hogs? If he does, the Magic Archer and Ice Golem could take his entire tower. Lindsay is forced to Mega Knight that side instead, allowing Jupiter King massive damage. Jupiter King wins yet another 1v1 set. Can Jupiter King even be defeated once? The reality is, anything can happen with this many amazing players in a single league. The competition has been insane since day 1 of CRL 2020, but what was your favorite week so far? Drop a comment below and
on the minor. Poison Tiki,
Log.
where's the log?
Oh!
Oh my gosh!
What a way to kick off the 2020 season.
Tudo pra levar agora.
Que isso? E essa partida praticamente decidida? Não tem como. Torre no chão, Necão.
The fireball does not take the musketeer off the board, and so now NATOing it back, but RG is going to finish this off. Oh my word. Wow. Did anyone bet this one? Did you get your fantasy lineup right? Lose side, a team that's proven to be a bit of an upset squad.
And if you're SK Gaming, you've got to figure out what to adjust. You've got to change it yesterday. Not today, not tomorrow, yesterday. What we saw today with the switch up, Morten going to 1v1, Javi going to 2v2 with Sam, it worked masterfully.
That is wow. Do it. That's how you get it done. He's at a bit more damage. Can they do it? They did it! They stole it! Oh my word! Cream Royale Betis against SK Gaming in the Misfits side of the bracket. Andrew, like you said before, I cannot wait for this. Welcome back, and let's get ready for our second semi-final of the day. We just saw the defending world champions fall, and now it's the defending Western champions in a win-or-go-home match. SK Gaming takes on Cream Royale Betis.
What a big matchup this is. Both squads at 2-2, and you heard it there in the video. SK makes a massive mid-season adjustment, and they have not lost since. Javi moves to 2v2, Morten moves to 1v1, and SK goes from 0-2 to 2-2. And here we are in playoffs once again against CRB. It's been a while since we've seen Cream be a dominant force. Rich, are you excited? Are you excited?
I'm excited about this specific matchup for a very specific reason, Andrew. SK has been here over and over again, multiple times, second in their region, of course, a Western Championship last season. Cream Royale Betis came this close. They made it to the finals when they were just Cream Esports back in CRL Latin America. But who stopped them in that finals? Who took 2 1v1 sets off them? Javi Catorze back with Vivo keyed. Beat Codigo not once but twice in the 1v1. He's the man who denied Cream a shot at the world champion, at a world finals berth back in 2018 for Tokyo. The question is, will he do it again? Can Cream finally shake off this bad rhythm they've had throughout CRL
Yeah,
West?
you know, SK is one of those squads that when they get into playoffs, when it really comes pedal to the metal, they are a team that always comes out on top, and they've done it time and time again, other than maybe 1 HP at World Finals. But you know they want it back. You know they want to take that West victory once again. But what's really, really interesting about the squads that we've seen today is that Team Liquid and SK have both not beaten a squad that made playoffs. SK has beaten Team Queso and Pain, and of course Team Liquid took down Chivas and Dig. So this is really, really interesting because Cream on the other side of it, one of their wins is against a playoff team in Team Liquid. So I don't know if that's actually going to correlate over to today, but it is just kind of something to keep in mind when we look at these two 2v2 squads facing off against one another.
Let's take a look at the roster for Cream Royale Betis. Of course, new uniforms, new squad, new look, and a new chance at making our way into those semifinals. Belican, Diego E, Pedro, and Yarai. Diego E and Yarai have been the 2v2 duo the whole way through, and they've been fairly good. Of course, Pedro, a great head-to-head player. The big question here is, which St. Belican shows up today with playoffs on the line?
Yeah, that is a very, very good question. I'm sure we'll be seeing him come at least into that 1v1 set, but we'll find out. SK Gaming, our defending CRL West champions, Javi Catorze, who is now a 2v2 star. Morten moves into the 1v1. Sergio Ramos definitely going to be seen in one of those 1v1 sets. I couldn't imagine he is not. And then, of course, OP Sam, the man who can do it in 2v2, 1v1. But now paired up with Javi in 2v2, they have been perfect since. I'm very, very excited to see what SK is going to do today. And what a big day for both these squads going up against someone like Pedro 15, who is honestly the only person in all of CRL who's taken a game off of Jupiter King.
Yeah, and here we go, the 2v2 lineups, and Cream Royale Betis sticking with what's worked. SK Gaming going back to the classic, the German duo, Sam and Morten.
Wow.
Together again, so not sticking with the Javi-Sam combo.
Yeah, very, very surprising here. We're actually seeing the same bans that we saw in our first match of the day. Cream Royale Betis banning the minor, SK Gaming taking off Tornado from play, and Yeah, this is fascinating. You know, Javi and Sam are playing really, really well together, and Javi would still be available for 1v1 sets. So here we go. The bait is flying. Let's go. Match 2, set 1.
Very aggressive opening from Morton and Sam. And, you know, Andrew, one thing to think about with this change is it might be that Sam and Morton are still the ace 2v2 duo for SK, but in those last 2 matches, they just felt like they needed to put Morton in the 1v1, and that was the main reason for the switch. Here in this best-of-5 format, Morton can play a 1v1 set and still be in 2v2.
Yeah, it's a very, very strong point you make, and it's looking like the quad bait here from these 4 gentlemen. Mega Knight comes out, Skelly Barrel up front to tank for that Mega Knight, but gonna need something on the back end to clean up those little areas.
Snowball does come in, but not before SK Gaming takes a slight lead, and Princess being completely uncontested on the left-hand side until that Musketeer comes down. So lead in both lanes right now for SK Gaming.
Yeah, had to wait just a moment for that Musketeer to get behind the P.E.K.K.A if it would cross the river, so taking a lot of damage on that left-hand side, but here you go, getting a little bit of blow back on the right.
That Mega Knight pulled so much defensive duty on the Goblin Barrel, the Skeleton Barrel, and the Musketeer. Huge Mega Knight for SK Gaming.
Yeah, so looking very, very close to what we would call a mirror matchup here. Delivery comes in, pushes that Skelly Barrel back, but Goblins on the tower, and a lot of damage coming in from those Goblins.
Skeletons do not add anymore, but the damage is done. 925 right-hand side to 1293. Remember, at this moment, though, SK Gaming does have better lane switching ability, and that's a ton of damage on the right-hand side.
Yeah, you know, they were so focused on the Dark Goblin at the river, it seemed like Kree maybe overspent on the Dark Goblin, not enough on the back end, and now that's going to be towered down for SK. Cream firing back, however.
Princess Bats keeping it close enough, 480 on the right-hand side, so this gets challenging, Andrew, because what kind of direct damage do you have on that right-hand side if you have the spell cycle while you can still play defense?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how aggressive SK is in this final 37 seconds, knowing that this is most likely going to be a 2-tower game. Really probably wanting their opponents to commit a ton of elixir on the right. There it is. They basically sack the tower with some bats. Oh, no, they don't. The delivery comes in and cleans it all up.
And that ended up taking 0 damage, Andrew.
Yeah.
So now, Cream in a lot of trouble.
Here we go. They have to spend all out again on that right-hand lane. This should be tower down. Yes, it will be, but now you see the Inferno Tower set up on the left-hand side. P.E.K.K.A off the board. SK should be back in the driver's seat here when it comes to offense.
Here we go. Now starting to spell cycle and put a lot down on that left-hand lane. SK Gaming starting to pull ahead as we go into sudden death overtime. Ahead on damage, ahead on elixir. Can they close this one out?
Here we go. Maybe a high P.E.K.K.A. Nope, it's going to go Mega Knight instead, right? Mega Knight on top of Mega Knight. Poison in, offensive poison, and a second Mega Knight comes down here for SK. They are going all out.
Barrel goes to the front, not to the back, so the Skeletons in the back do not help out. And now a small counter push coming in, loading up. Goblin Barrel, but the Princess to the opposite lane will help with the Skeletons.
And look at that. Once again, the Royal Delivery paying dividends. 3 incredible elixir used to take about 20 off the board. It felt like crossing the river there for SK. But now their lead is dwindling just a bit.
Approaching that final minute, about 800 HP ahead is SK Gaming. Cream Royale Betis trying to put the pressure on. Some decent poison value will come in. A little bit of chip damage there, but now a healthy Mega Knight, Skeleton Barrel, and Bats going the opposite direction.
Yeah, the poison value needs to come in here for SK, and there it is. On top of the Dark Goblin, on top of the Musketeer, on top of the Princess Tower, and now giving them a healthier lead, about 400 HP on the board.
And this delivery has been the absolute MVP for SK Gaming, Andrew. The number of times it's worked on that double bait push has been huge.
Yeah, truly the great equalizer in this matchup. And here we go, 2 Mega Knights down. Will we see a Blitzkrieg? Will they sell out and go for the win right here? P.E.K.K.A going to make it more difficult.
Second Inferno Tower down. Princess trying to support. Goblin Barrel and on the left-hand side for Cream Royale Betis. Gets nothing on that tower. King Tower and Skeletons able to help out. Do it again this time. And just not able to create any significant damage here, Andrew, in these final 10 seconds.
It's all about the Inferno and the Royal Delivery. You called it with the delivery, but that Inferno basically making that P.E.K.K.A useless on the board. SK just barely steals this one. 175 damage difference. Sam and Morton back back on top.
Uri and Diego E just not able to get 1 or 2 extra goblin stabs. And you also talk about the spell damage as well. The spell damage that Sam and Morton were able to get on the value side for the left-hand lane as we were in sudden death overtime really put the pressure on Uri and Diego E and kept them behind, not only putting damage on their tower, but ended up being a lot of troop work, both on the Musketeer and the Dart Goblin many, many times.
Yeah, so you see there, Diego E is the guy holding the Inferno Tower and, of course, the P.E.K.K.A, but look at that. Not one Inferno Tower played by Cream Real Betis, and the Inferno Tower is on the opposite side of it. Look at that, 20 elixirs spent on those, and that was a huge thing. I truly believe, like you said, the Royal Delivery up high and the Inferno Tower low really mitigated all those bridge pushes, and of course, the P.E.K.K.A coming across the river, running into an Inferno Tower, just devastating. So here we go. Just another great offensive sequence by SK we're going to take a look at, and this was actually right after about 4 elixir was spent on that Dark Goblin in sequence, one after the other, and they just had no response for the barrel on their Princess Tower.
Well, you know, as we get towards double and then triple elixir, these double bait matchups become absolutely insane. But it's in single, I think, where you really win this matchup, where you get elixir advantages. And once they were ahead there, they were ahead on elixir, which is why they got that tower down, and they were able to take that lead into sudden death, into that final 2-minute period. Even see here, look at the elixir right now. Look at the difference as that tower falls, so much more spent to deal with it, but they're set up with that Inferno Tower.
Yeah, you know, 8 elixir came down, and I think it was maybe 4 to 6 in defense came out for SK, so a really great positive elixir trade there, and, you know, doing exactly what they should have done. I wasn't sure if they were going to or not. Sometimes you see people with double bait go all out if their opponent tries to take that second tower in the final minutes of regulation, but instead they defend just enough to make it so that Uri and Diego have to spend more elixir than they'd like on that right-hand side to take the tower, giving them that advantage that we talked about early on in single or in regulation. Once again, it translates over to overtime.
So there you go, SK Gaming taking that game, and this is kind of what we thought. We thought SK Gaming would have the advantage in the 2v2 set. Diego and Uri have been very good this season, but they just don't have the experience as 2v2 players or as a 2v2 duo like Sam and Morton do. So SK Gaming with the lead in 2v2, and we'll see if they continue to extend that here in game number 2. And then when we get into the head-to-head matchups, Andrew, we will have a ton to talk about.
Yeah.
But a lot of this for Cream Real Betis, how much pressure lands there is whether or not they can get the upset in set number 1.
Well, you know, we talk about it all the time in BO3. We mentioned it again in the last match, but, you know, this 2v2 set obviously very, very important when you talk about momentum, because a lot of times in that King of the Hill set, you do not want your best player in the first spot. Now, if you drop that 2v2 and you put in, let's say, maybe your third blessed head-to-head player in that first spot, you're down 2 sets once again. So let's see how this initial set closes out. Will Cream fire back in game 2, or will Sam and Morton with the bait take this victory once again?
And Sam and Morton are really enjoying that split barrel open. They've done that now both games in a row. Very curious to see what they like about it. If it's just that they probably don't have all of their barrel counters in hand to open.
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's one of those things where they're taking the RNG and using it to their advantage. There is a very, very good chance that your opponent does not have both the responses for barrels if you have both barrels in your opening hand. So seeing that they had them in their opening hand 2 games in a row, they get damage on the map both times.
High fireball to deal with the skeleton barrel on the left-hand side. We'll take a little bit of chip damage anyway, and that's a -1 trade for Cream Real Betis.
Mega Knights jumping to the opposite sides of their respective boards. And a barrel in the back, a tricky barrel, 1 goblin behind, tanked for by the Mega Knight. A great barrel there from SK.
This is so far just been a master class from Sam and Morton, who, keep note, have ran double bait twice. We have not seen piggies from the Germans.
I really don't like the fact that those bats did not catch the Inferno Tower. It's something that they saw out of their opponents time and time again. Last matchup, every time P.E.K.K.A crossed the river, that Inferno Tower came down. Those bats were just a step behind and made it an easy defense for Sam and Morton.
Princess to the opposite lane will help with a lot of this cleanup. Don't have to even spend a whole lot spell-wise on defense. Snowball able to clean things up. 1243 right-hand lane to 934, and this Princess will do some damage on the left-hand side.
Yeah, so not quite in as big of a hole as they were in game number 1, our Cream Real Betis' Diego E and Uri, but would be really nice for them and their squad to have a lead at any point in the 2v2 set.
So a very big difference in how they're both handling these skeleton barrels. It's been Sam and Morton mostly handling them pretty close to tower, letting them fall and getting them cleaned up there, where Cream has been trying to deal with those barrels high.
Ooh, and that was just a little bit of a mistiming on the double barrel there from Sam and Morton, allowing that log to get a +4 trade. And now we finally see the Inferno Tower coming out from Cream, but right into their opponent's Inferno Tower, a waste of 5 elixir.
And the Princess not picked up, so that's 2 shots by the Princess, 339 on the right-hand lane.
Mega Knight high, Royal Delivery low. And this is going to be tower down for Cream. You can see they're just going to sacrifice the tower, maybe try to go on offense, but there's too little, too late.
Snowball trying to make some room, Poison in as well. Those skeletons will not get to tower. That's going to be a GG, well played, clean 2-0 from Sam and Morton.
We've seen that in both matches today from the squads that we expected to play better 2v2 in Sam and Morton and AC and RF, and that's exactly what they expected as squads as well, because you look at who they have in that first spot. Now, obviously, SSG a little bit unorthodox, but still puts Samuel Basoto in that first spot. So I'm imagining right now, based off what we saw in match 1, we're probably going to see the least experienced head-to-head players coming into this very first game.
It's going to be an interesting choice there, Andrew, who they actually put out. Of course, right now, taking a look at the stats, you can see again the difference in buildings. One time the Inferno Tower comes down for Uri and Diego E, and it comes down right into the burn of another Inferno Tower. And that seemed like, for a moment, it felt like Uri and Diego E were still in it. When that 5 elixir ended up being completely thrown down the drain, that felt like the nail in the coffin.
And you know, I kind of harped on it earlier in the matchup, but it was just one of those things. When the P.E.K.K.A. was slowly crossing the river, the bats came down to do exactly what they intended, which was to support the P.E.K.K.A. and get on top of the Inferno, but it was just late. Maybe it wasn't in cycle quick enough, maybe they didn't have the elixir, but I honestly think it was just a very, very slight mental mistake, which is understandable when so much is going on, but if you lost the last matchup and the P.E.K.K.A. getting burned down when the Inferno Tower was one of the biggest factors in that, you can't let it happen time and time again, especially if you're going to spend that elixir to prevent it from happening, but it's late.
So here you go, SK Gaming with a set in hand. We go into the 1v1. Andrew, you're talking about the less experienced players in 1v1. But we take a look at these lineups on both sides. You know, if you talk about where the experience is, on SK Gaming side, you have Morton, who's one of the top head-to-head top competitive players of all time. Sam, who's playing some of his best Clash Royale of his life right now. Javi Catorze, and the CCGS World Champion. Like, where do you find the least experienced? I mean, I guess Sergio Ramos has played the least as of late, but overall, you're trying to find the least experienced player there. It's like trying to find the slowest car at a Ferrari race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess maybe to be more specific, the less experienced this season. And yeah, I think you're correct when you say Sergio Ramos, because you look at it and you go, man, who do they put in? Does it really matter? They're all, you know, all-stars in the game, but Sergio hasn't played a lot this season, and same with St. Bellican. So I don't know if Cream was expecting to win the 2v2. They'd played very well in the 2v2, so maybe they actually come out with someone that they want to close things out. Maybe they just go right into Pedro, expecting to go up 2-0 against SK, but obviously not the case for them, and a very, very interesting position is Cream Royale Betis. And there it is.
Bellican versus Sergio Ramos. I mean, I'll call this right it is. It's a classic Clash Royale matchup. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Best of 3 in our set number 2. The Brit and the Spaniard going head-to-head. Or, sorry, the Brit and the Mexican.
Yeah, this is like a Legends match. This is amazing. So here we go. Belly and Sergio. Flashback.
Belly, of course, as we've talked about before, took some time off from CRL to finish school, but stayed active in CCS and in the Orange Crown lead as well. And Sergio Ramos, after winning the CCGS World Championship, kind of disappeared from the Western scene for a bit, but was over with Nova Esports and CRL China for a couple of seasons for the 2018 run, and then back here with SK Gaming as a part of this big powerhouse roster. And he's a guy who's just so calm and confident consistently. And that's been a big part of why he's been a part of rosters, even when he's not been as active comparative to the rest of his team.
And that was a really, really nice roll delivery from Belican recognizing that his opponent was most likely going to drop those Royal Hogs. However, still not able to mitigate a lot of the damage, and Sergio Ramos in a very, very nice lead. Magic Archer will get one more shot in. 800 damage in the lead is SK.
Double bait for Belly up against this fireball bait for Sergio Ramos. And so far up to the task, that Goblin Cage going to be a big part of the defense against the Skeleton Barrel as time goes on.
And if you're kind of scratching your head wondering, I swear, have I seen these guys this season? Well, you've seen Belican once, but this is Sergio Ramos' season debut here in 2020.
Yeah, it's wild to think of how little you've seen both of these two guys play. Belican was such a huge part of the Team Queso CRL EU Championship back in 2018, but so far, really, it's just been Diego Irai and the fantastic 1v1 play of Pedro that's really carried them, not to mention Diego E's big King of the Hill sweep to put them through into play.
So here we go. Royal Delivery going to be on top, coupled with that log, going to mitigate those hogs 100%. So Sergio Ramos going to maybe need to be a little bit quicker on the draw with that Heal Spirit if he wants to connect. But it's going to be very, very tough because you got to get that Heal Spirit to pop on something to heal those piggies.
So again, you see the Goblin Cage high to stop that Skeleton Barrel, but the run behind it is just too much. Dark Goblin gets on tower, tower down, St. Belican now with the lead with only 25 seconds left.
And I love what Belican did there. It was the log. He recognized on the last offensive sequence that he had that when Sergio Ramos played his cannon cart back behind the tower, his knight was able to connect. So what does he do? He sells out, logs again, makes sure nothing is going to be in the way, and he gets a clear path to the Princess Tower. Sergio Ramos, defending twice the same way, gets picked apart by St. Belican.
So we do see Zappies make their debut after the recent buff, but not to the advantage of Sergio Ramos. Belican taking game number one for Cream.
Yeah, I love that log from Belican. That's exactly what we're used to seeing out of him, are those very cerebral plays and just going in and taking the W. Haven't seen a lot of him as of late. Really nice to see him back out with such a strong performance. Sergio Ramos, on the other hand, I'm actually a bit surprised by him defending the exact same way again with that cannon cart after seeing the sequence before paying off so well for his opponent.
Sometimes you get locked into a rhythm, Andrew.
Yeah.
You don't see another way to do it, and part of it also is looking at your hand and your card, the cards in your hand, going, okay, well, this is what I'm holding. What do I put where, and is there a better place to put this in this moment? Sometimes there simply isn't. You get caught into a bad rhythm, and Belican able to capitalize on that and take game number one. So let's take a look at some of the action from that last one.
Yeah, you talk about responses, and here we go. This is the first time it kind of happens. Cannon cart's low, it picks all these units off the board, but I was even thinking the same thing here. Is that knight going to connect? Yes, it is. So how does Belican take advantage of that moving forward? Well, first of all, it's going to be by great defenses coupled with the Royal Delivery and the log.
Yeah, log delivery, just wiping that off the board, and you're talking about 10 elixir coming down from Sergio Ramos and 5 the opposite direction from Belican to deal with that. Not to mention there was a Heal Spirit there, so that's a +6 trade for Belican at that point against his double bait deck. Good luck coming back for anybody.
Yeah, great. That's the exact log we're talking about. Knocks everything back, gets a little bit of damage on top of that Magic Archer. Dark Goblin takes it off the board. Nothing to put up front, because here's the thing. The only other thing that he had are the Zappies, and you don't want to play Zappies up high because, first of all, they take a second to start attacking, and secondly, they're pretty squishy, so it would have been a waste of elixir. Sergio did what he could, but Belican just outplayed him.
Yeah, it was a good situation for Belican, and falling behind against that. That's the thing about bait, right? Is momentum one way or the other with bait is so devastating. You fall behind against bait, and now suddenly you're struggling, and you fall behind as bait, and suddenly it's how do I get back into this one? So Belican gets the rhythm, gets the advantage, and gets a big-time win here in game number one. Game number two in just a moment. Let's go ahead and hop right on in and see if Sergio Ramos can tie things up in the second set of this quarterfinal.
One thing we haven't spoken of enough is that Sergio didn't really have a great matchup, obviously, right? He didn't have a way to clean up the barrel or the Skelly barrel completely effectively. I believe it was Poison was his spell, and then Heal Spirit, so...
Royal Giant aggressive from Belican to open up, and you see Sergio Ramos maybe going back to the exact same thing this time. Fireball gets the Magic Archer off, and Belican out to another good start.
Yeah, Skelly's going to mitigate this very, very well, and Yeah, nice start for Belly indeed.
So this one will be interesting as time goes on, assuming that he's running the Fisherman Hunter version against the same Royal Hogs deck. You have so many fireball targets between the Zappies, the Magic Archer, and of course the Royal Hogs.
King Tower activation not going to be in play on this sequence. Maybe we see a high split Royal Hogs, but that obviously will be very, very predictable. So here he goes, all in on the right-hand side. And great poison value here for Sergio Ramos.
What does he have for this Royal Giant? Behind a little bit on Elixir right now. Cage comes in high on this one, bats behind. This Royal Giant should do some significant damage in that left-hand lane.
And then the Heal Spirit last second bats behind. That is a massive, massive blow for Sergio Ramos to take and Belican to deliver.
It's just going to be difficult for Sergio Ramos to win some of these bridge battles here. You know, you have the Cage delivery combination, but against Royal Giant, not quite as effective as others. We'll see what he sets up on. He's going to take a few more Royal Giant shots on that left-hand side, Andrew. So the question is, how can he create enough damage to make this thing a fire?
Also, when you look at the things, or the cards and the Skellies, the Heal Spirit, and the Bats, there's not a direct way to get those all off the board, so Belican can really, really kind of cycle those however he'd like, and then see how Sergio wants to respond. I mean, look how long those Bats are staying on the board.
This is what he needs, Andrew. He does have a healthy cannon cart, so now we'll see if Sergio goes opposite lane, and he does.
So Hunter plus Log, I'm sure, on the right-hand side. There's the Magic Archer to line things up and get a little bit of chip damage in.
And now you do have an Elixir lead for Sergio Ramos, so exactly what he needs to do is prevent too many shots from the Royal Giant, have a healthy cannon cart, get some good DPS on there, and create counter pushes.
Yeah, so here we go. High Goblin Cage to deal with this Royal Giant. Fireball comes in, opening up a space for, of course, the Royal Hogs. Royal Hogs, though, going to come down on the right behind the Zappies as opposed to in front.
And that's tower down on the left-hand side. 12 seconds left. Looks like it's going to be a clean 2-0 sweep for Belican here in our second set. Big win, great deck choices, and Cream now ties things up in set number 2.
Sergio just not able to put it together with that deck 2 times in a row. Belican, honestly, just kind of outplaying him. You know, Sergio kind of got in a rhythm over and over in both those games, kind of going back to the well when it wasn't really paying off. Belican takes it and puts it in his corner, makes sure that Sergio Ramos knows that that deck, don't run it against me ever, ever again.
Yeah, Belican slammed the door on that one and takes a big 2-0 win, and obviously now it's going to go at least to set number 4, so we'll see about what those matchups will be in just a moment. Sergio Ramos just had so much trouble breaking through, and you look at Belican's deck, right? It doesn't seem like there's a lot to stop the Royal Hogs, but between the Fireball if you need it, the Log, and then the Fisherman and Hunter are able to split those up and pop them off. Nice work there for Belly.
When you don't have a great way to get on top of Skeletons or Bats, we all know how much damage they can do. So a Hunter plus one of those cheap cards, Hunter plus Skeletons, Log, right-hand lane, easy, easy money time and time again for Belican. And here we go. Heal Spirit completely protected. Royal Giant gets a ton of shots in on the right-hand side. And there you go. Log plus Hunter cleans everything up. Sergio sells out, but just not able to put it together. The only moment where Sergio looked like he might be coming back in it was when he got those great shots on the Magic Archer on the right-hand side, but even then, he was still very far behind.
Well, there was a DPS issue here, Andrew, where the ability for Belican to clean up the Hogs and prevent the methodology for getting on tower from doing any significant damage was there. The Log to knock back, Fireball if he needs it, and the DPS from the defensive troops enough to stop it. There just really wasn't ever enough on the other side to stop the Royal Giant from doing significant damage on the tower. So every single Royal Giant, unless you sold out, unless you really overcommitted, was going to be a ton of damage, at least a few shots, whereas the pigs were going to be stopped more often than not.
And there was great Fireball decision-making as well, right? The Fireball was used time and time again to clean the Goblin Cage off the board to get the RG back on tower because the Magic Archer wasn't really a threat. What is the Magic Archer a biggest threat to? The Skeletons and the Bats, but those are not your win condition. Those are not the things you need to focus on protecting. So really, really easy decision goes, look, I'm going to hold the Fireball. If you go aggro with the Royal Hogs, off the map. But if you don't, I'm going to get aggro with my Royal Giant and then defend with Hunter plus Log. Just a really, really well-played offense and defense over and over again by Belican.
So there you have it, all tied up 1-1. our next set incoming. Remember, you cannot play back-to-back sets in the 1v1 set, and that's not going to be happening here. Pedro versus OP Sam. This should be a good one, folks. Let's go ahead and get that one kicked off.
Yeah, Pedro has put an incredible season together, taking out 2-0 sets against Anaban, Lindsay, Igor, and again, he's the only person that's taken a game off of Jupiter King this season.
Well, Pedro's a phenomenal player and had a great showing in CRL Latin America, and then couldn't find his way to CRL West, and spent some time over with Kicks in the East. Continue to show how good he can be, and finally this season, finding a West team and able to make that, put all those pieces together and get here in a division that really wanted to see him for a long time.
I was going to say, so going to see Royal Giant here coming out for Pedro, and now with the big damage dealer in the barrel off the board, Skeleton Barrel comes down, Pedro decides to go Royal Giant in the back.
You can go ahead and just log that, get a ton of value there, so 2 takes 6 off the board. Royal Giant nicely set up, and that's a very far Inferno Tower. Bats able to get some of that damage taken away from the Royal
And those
Giant.
bats were played, they even felt like they were held on to for a second. Pedro's like, all right, let's let the RG have a couple more steps. Now I'll drop the bats, and that's what I was looking for in that 2v2 earlier.
So Pedro up a little bit. An elixir in the hole, +4 on the board, so a 5 elixir advantage right now for the cream player from Venezuela.
And I'll be really curious to see if Pedro starts to use the log for the skeleton barrel and then the hunter for the goblin barrel.
Well, the hunter can do it, but what you just saw right there, if he can continue to get that skeleton barrel to pop early, Heal Spirit's fine. Heal Spirit's more than sufficient on defense, so every time he can spend that 1 to defend that 3, that's a big advantage for Pedro.
For sure, and then the interesting moment there for Pedro is, do I get to use my Heal Spirit on offense to support this Royal Giant having to deal with the Inferno Tower? So there you go. Hunter played perfectly. That's exactly how you want to do it. No damage in. Huge counter push. Very, very nicely played.
Skeleton Barrel going to the left-hand side, but it's going to reset with the Royal Giant, knowing Inferno Tower is out of cycle. On the right-hand lane, 2 Fishermen and a Hunter, and again, Heal Spirit able to clean up most of that damage on the left-hand side.
Hunter behind, or excuse me, Fisherman behind, pulling everything into that Hunter blast. Hunter should still get a shot here because of those skeletons. No, it actually does not, but a very, very nice sequence there for Pedro.
Pedro firmly in control as we go closer and closer to sudden death overtime. Final 15 seconds.
There you go, Fireball in, Heal Spirit down again. That Heal Spirit doing a great job against those Skelly Barrels, just like he called early on. Why not take the +2 trade every single time? We can figure out offense on our own without the Heal Spirit. Here we go.
And that one's an easy choice to log, and still with the advantage is Pedro. Sets up RG in the back this time on the left-hand side. Pops, and this time the Skeletons Heal Spirit again, able to stop things. Dark Goblin will get a few important chip shots on the right-hand side, 14-47 to 10-32. The lead definitely a bit precarious here for Pedro.
Yeah, Sam made the correct decision there to support the barrel with the Dark Goblin that time to see finally that Heal Spirit cannot just clean up. He cannot keep making these +2 trades. So I like the adjustment there from Sam, and he gets a good damage on the tower because of it.
Skeletons surround, and then the Knight to come out behind. 8:31 on the right-hand side, 1:20 left.
Pedro misplays the Hunter there just a second, but doesn't matter. The barrel goes to the front of the tower, so damage done. A little bit early on the Heal Spirit, but just to keep that Fisherman alive and now to deal with these skeletons.
And here we go, Bats behind. Nothing for the Inferno Tower. Has to log to push the Royal Giant towards the Inferno Tower here. And Bats are being tanked for by the Royal Giant. That's a ton of damage. That's going to be GG. Well played. Pedro takes game number 1.
Having to reset the Royal Giant's aggro on top of that high Inferno Tower. A rough moment there for Sam. Yes, it's 2 Elixir. Yes, it's the log. But it's really just about things being out of cycle and Elixir being available when needed. Bats get to tower. And Pedro now taking the lead for Cream with a set in hand each, but now up by a game.
Yeah, that's big. That's absolutely big for Pedro, a guy who, you know, Eric Benamou of Team Liquid often called publicly the top player out of Latin America. Not really seen much on the West. Was supposed to be on Energy's roster at one point, but couldn't make it work. And now on a big stage, taking a big win off of a guy who's gotten a #1 finish on ladder in 2020.
Yeah. Like you said, at the beginning of this matchup, Sam has been playing some of the best Clash Royale, if not the best Clash Royale of his life. But Pedro, on the other side of it, from what we saw between 2019 and 2020 and what he did in the offseason with online tournaments, he is just incredible right now. So let's take a look at some of these sequences that he did put together, and this was it. Just a lot of Royal Giants being supported by Fishermans and Bats, and this was the moment where you saw the high Inferno Tower, the reset with the log, the Bats getting tanked for, and a good game from OP Sam.
Yeah, and the Bats not having to get involved in the Inferno Tower situation. So you're sitting there going, okay, the Bats are going to go to that right-hand side, but now nothing to deal with the Bats. Those little guys do so much DPS. A lot of people don't talk about it. Pros talk about this a bit. Bats are one of the cards that come up on pro nerf lists.
Always.
Not so much in the casual community, but and that you saw right there how quickly those little bites can stack up on the tower when they're being tanked for. Massive DPS in those little farms.
And I think that's a really great point you make. Pedro there with a really, really heads-up, quick decision-making goes, oh, wow, that Inferno Tower does not look correct. So instead of playing Bats in the middle, I'm going to play him on the right side. And the best-case scenario is he logs my RG to the tower and the Bats get on. Worst case scenario for him is he kills my Bats, my RG goes straight to the tower. So very well played by Pedro in game number 1. Let's hop into game number 2 and see what SK can put together.
Here we go. Sam top of your screen, Pedro at the bottom. It's going bait both sides, and both of them go out to the front.
Yep, to the front, double log. It's a mirror.
It's probably double bait from both. That's the go-to version of bait right now. There have been some versions of log bait popular amongst other players as of late. Prince Rascal's bait's been making a bit of a comeback, of course, with that Prince buff, and classic log bait's being seen a little bit here and there, but this is the one, if you want to put pressure on, that really gets those big wins.
Really, really nice royal delivery there. You see Skeleton Barrel connecting on the right-hand side, but log comes in to clean up the little Larrys.
And notice Pedro not playing the delivery on that one, wasn't available.
So maybe we see a Skeleton Barrel. Nope, maybe Goblin Barrel. Yep, there it is, the Skelly Barrel Goblin on the left-hand side, however.
So log for the first, delivery for the second. Takes a few skeleton shots, does Sam, and the opening minute has passed. It is Pedro ahead by a few hundred HP, and that Knight adding some more damage to the right-hand lane.
Yeah, not dropping the skeletons just because it's not really necessary. Tower's basically even, 300 damage separating the two, and right hand obviously the healthier.
So you see here the delivery early to prevent the death damage from Pedro. We'll see if Sam starts making similar choices or decides instead has to log that one off, and now it's going to be log for the Skelly Barrel for the moment and delivery for those Goblin Barrels. So does he have that timing down correctly? This time he does.
And you see it. It's really important to notice that both these guys are doing the exact thing. Any time that one of those cards are played in the Skelly or the Goblin Barrel, they're not getting fancy with their defense. They're making sure they defend with either the Log or the Royal Recruit so that they're always back around and cycling. So here you go. Log's going to be available for that barrel because of the work that he put in earlier.
Here we go. Full double push on the left-hand side. Dark Goblin and Knight. So this one trying to save at least the delivery this time around. So both players on each opposite ends of the board doing some troop work, trying to create counter pushes. And again, you see Pedro does not want that Skeleton Barrel death damage to start stocking up. We'll see if Sam adjusts at all or keeps taking those drops.
That was a great sequence by Pedro to defend that basically perfectly and get in a slight counter push here. Log's going to come in with that Goblin Barrel, and that's what I'm talking about. Pedro is ahead of Sam in the cycle, just a hair. And there you go, delivery down to defend. Brilliant by Cream.
And you saw Sam went to the front with the Goblin Barrel, where the Skeleton Barrel also was, giving a lot of value to that delivery. We'll see if he splits up the placement a little bit more as time goes on, currently behind. And keep an eye on that delivery response to the Goblin Barrel, Andrew, because that delivery, when you drop it, the Recruit goes to the back of the tower, so a properly timed Dark Goblin, if that Recruit's behind, can really be devastating against that defense.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point you make, and Here we go. I mean, Sam about 1,000 HP behind on that left to right-hand side. And, you know, one thing, I think we've done an incredible job with working with what we have here in 2020, but I do miss just a little bit of the player cams to see their reactions when they misplay things or when they don't have something in cycle against something like a Scaly or Goblin Barrel, because it's so devastating when you talk about morale.
We're in a very similar situation, Andrew, to one that we saw earlier today. Sam significantly far behind in a bait, in a chippy matchup. What does he do to get back in here? He has to get overly aggressive. So we'll see if he can find a way to do it that actually gets damage on tower, or if it's just that Pedro is going to be firmly in control for the next 60 seconds.
I mean, what he needs to do is make his opponent make a mistake, which is very, very difficult to do when you talk about playing against Pedro, because that's the thing with bait, right? One tricky barrel and all of a sudden 1,000 damage is on the tower, and that's something that we need to see from Sam if he wants to take it. So here we go, a little bit tricky barrel, all to the back, and they do connect, so a little bit of damage in, but still about half as much as Pedro.
But he's a little late on the delivery, playing the Inferno Tower, so down to 370. And that's the thing, is you can get that delivery timing down perfectly, but you start trying to do other stuff. You're like, I can sneak this card in before I play that delivery. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen ever, and you see the results there. This is going to be death damage on the left-hand side, down to 260. Sam in a lot of trouble, 20 seconds left. A lot of pressure in both lanes from Pedro.
Dark Goblin stacked behind that Knight there. Royal Delivery not in cycle, so he goes with the barrel. Left-hand side getting a little bit of damage in, but all very well dealt with by Pedro. Knight on the bottom right-hand tower. Pedro going to take this in overtime.
So there you go. After the 2v2 goes to SK Gaming, back-to-back 1v1 sets for Cream Royale Betis. And now it's all coming down to what we assume is going to be Morten for SK Gaming to clutch things up for his team.
100%. It has to be Morten and Uri. It just has to be. Morten, there's no way he doesn't come into a 1v1 set, although it is shocking to think that we have not seen Javi Catorce at all today, even in the opening 1v1 set, even in the 2v2. But I am totally with you. I think it has to be Morten. And then Uri, a guy that I talked about in your preseason video as one of the most slept-on players in all of CR, in a big, big moment to bring home the W for Cream Royale Betis. If it's him, but I can't imagine it's not.
What a performance for Pedro here, and two very, very important games against Sam, able to get it done. And, you know, there's various feelings about mirror matches, right? Some people say it's the ultimate test of skill because there's no matchup. Some say starting hand dictates so much of it because one person gets the right one, person gets the wrong one, and you're fighting from behind the entire way through. But you saw some difference in decision-making here. You saw Pedro not letting that skeleton barrel death damage stack up on his tower. And just as I was mentioning it, there had already been about 1,000 HP of damage on Sam's left-hand tower. A lot of that was just from that skeleton barrel death damage throughout the first couple of minutes.
And the biggest thing to note about these two matchups between RF and Canario, and then now against Sam and Pedro with these double bait decks, is that it's all about your defense. It's not about the offense. Yes, you need to stay aggro on offense. Yes, you get the Skelly barrels and you support them with the bar barrel or the Goblin barrels, and you get a Dark Goblin behind. It's all great. But the biggest thing is about really, really dealing with the defense in sequence, making sure you get a little bit of a counter push, and always having those two responses in the delivery and the log available for your opponent's onslaught.
So there you go, Pedro with a big win, and he has really been a major part of Cream's success this season. Of course, another big part of it is the 2v2 duo of Diego and Uri, who didn't come out with the win today in this set, but of course, Diego had a huge King of the Hill sweep for his team. Uri's been great in head-to-head play as well. And now, my guess, most likely, as you're talking about, it's going to be Uri coming up next. So we'll have that information coming on screen here in just a couple of moments. Andrew, is this what you thought? I mean, we've already seen the defending world champions fall. Are we about to see the defending Western champions fall as well during the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I mean, it's just such an interesting position to be in. You know, they start off so strong in that 2v2 set. You come out with Sergio against Bellic, and you think you probably have a fair enough matchup. Maybe it is a coin toss, but before you know it, you've lost 4 games in a row, and now it's got to be Morten. It's got to be all pressure, all eyes on the German. Once again, we've seen him perform at his best in the highest pressure situations, but we've also seen him fall short, even if it is just by 1 HP. So most likely going to be the German back in that high pressure spot. There he is, Uri and Morten, exactly what you'd expect but pressure truly on for our former CRL West champions. Defending.
And that's interesting. Yeah, the defending CRL West champions. And that's an interesting difference, Andrew, from last time when it was RF who had match point in set number 4 for Space Station. We felt like the pressure was more on RF in that situation against Canario than it was here, whereas here I really feel like the pressure is more on Morten than it is on Yarai. Of course, there's the set to give for Cream, but also it kind of feels like Cream has already, in many ways, exceeded expectations for this season.
Yeah, and exceeded expectations in all of their sets, especially in head-to-head play. The idea that Pedro can come back out in King of the Hill and you have to go through him and Yarai makes me feel like it is a slight advantage towards Cream because we haven't seen Javi today. If Javi came out in one of those 1v1 sets and dominated, I'd be saying something much different right now.
It's looking like it might be Graveyard potentially both directions from Morten more likely, and yep, it is going to be Graveyard from Yarai as well.
So left-hand side, that Brawler!
That Brawler does not get pulled.
Oh, okay, there we go. Nice sequence there. High Knight, Brawler pulled to King Tower activation. Nothing there to catch the Inferno. Inferno Dragon burning away.
And that's Tower down on the right-hand side. Focusing on that Brawler for Yarai leaves open the possibility, and the Inferno Dragon just easily burns that down. And now I do not know how Yarai comes back into this.
Trying to do too much with too little, looking for that King Tower activation when instead could have gone with the High Knight. Ice Wizard to one tile to the right, defended both lanes. Instead tries to get fancy and loses Princess Tower and helps his opponent with damage on King.
And now Morten can just kind of sit back. He has the Archers, the Snowball, and the Valkyrie to play defense here. Set the line high with the Inferno Dragon. This is already a GG in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you talk about setting it high with the Inferno. You can set it high with the Valkyrie, Inferno, or the Goblin Cage. And then you said Archers, Snowball, back end with, of course, those Skeletons. This is already GG in the books. SK firing back here in the 4th set.
This is a huge one, and you see a nice counter push being built up by Yarai, but not sure how much good it will do at this stage. Inferno Dragon on the opposite side of the board. Skellies to surround on the Ice Wiz.
Yeah, and that one Archer stays out of the poison, gets a little bit of damage in. Snowball comes in late. A little bit of damage done, but still 800 damage behind, and a tower behind is Yarai.
Yeah, too little, too late. Yarai gives the good game, knows what happened, knows he got caught badly.
Yeah.
And just that King Tower activation so tempting there. You know you're probably against Graveyard here. A King Tower activation is really rough for a Graveyard player to break through against. And you go, I need to get this one, but the mistake in not picking up the Inferno Dragon ends up costing him the game. And, you know, now you have to win 2 in a row against Morten, which is not easy for anyone.
Yeah, and I'm really happy you plotted that out, because that's exactly what Yarai was thinking. If I can get this King Tower activation and survive this push, I've got a great advantage against Graveyard moving forward, especially if somehow this becomes a 2-tower game. I've got an even better advantage because Graveyard isn't great in 2-tower situations, but not the case, obviously running Graveyard of his own, but just not defending the way he'd like, not able to get that King Tower activation and create any sort of defense for that Inferno Dragon. And I have to imagine Morten kind of knew it, right? Like, you know what the deck is you're playing against. He was probably wondering what Yarai had, and the answer is nothing.
Let's go and jump into the replay. Maybe we'll take a look at the moment and see exactly what happened with Yarai missing that Inferno Dragon. So you see the Inferno coming across from the other side. Yarai plays the Knight high, and now only has 1 Elixir. Well, guess what? You don't have any 1 Elixir cards. The only thing you have is 3.
Yeah.
So the Snowball comes in to predict what might have played defense, but Yarai had 0 things available. Just lost track of the Inferno Dragon. Couldn't get around in time. GG, well played.
Well, I think Yarai was thinking he was going to get to that 2 Elixir in time to get his Bar Barrel back down on the board, but the problem is by the time that 2 Elixir ticks, the Inferno Tower, or the Inferno Dragon, isn't actually on the tower yet, but that Bar Barrel needs to roll and pop before the Inferno moves 2 more tiles. So Yarai recognizing, okay, my 2 Elixir now isn't going to work. I need 3. Too little, too late. Ice Wiz comes down. Morten picks him apart, knowing what deck he ran, knowing what he had in response, hoping he didn't have the Elixir, and it paid off.
Well, I wonder if that Knight was meant to pull both the Valkyrie and the Brawler, and the Tornado was a reaction to not getting those both picked up, going, oh my gosh, the Valk is tanking. This Brawler is going to ruin that left-hand tower, and played the NATO to mitigate that damage. And if that Knight had actually pulled those both, he has 1 extra second to not only then NATO that to King on the back end, but then have something down on the other side to contend with that Inferno.
I really just truly believe he should have split the line, right? Right down the middle, Knight 1 tile to the left, Ice Wiz 1 tile to the right, deals with both lanes, 100% damage mitigation, no King Tower activation, no tower down. But here we go, Game 2, Yarai looking to bounce back.
Yeah, you make a mistake like that, though, Andrew, and now Tilt comes into play.
Yeah.
Where are you mentally after just kind of throwing a game like that?
Yeah, man, Tilt is very, very real.
That might be the truest thing in terms of not just what you said, but the emotion behind that I've ever heard on this
I was
broadcast.
pretty sure you and I were talking about tilting before the broadcast today, and I'm sure you could hear the defeat in my voice. It happened with the closing out ladder push at the end of the season, but oh man, the tilt is real, the tilt is real.
So double bait from Morton and looking like RG here for Yarai.
Yeah, and this RG deck doesn't have a ton of great responses to get on top of those barrels immediately, but, conversely, Morton doesn't have a great way of getting a lot of damage on that Royal Giant and keeping it at bay.
Well, here are some good things for Yarai. Oh, interesting. So it's Miner. So it is not that RG deck. So some interesting pieces here for Yarai defensively. You can throw bats up high on the Skeleton Barrel on occasion to try to make it pop early. See the delivery there as well. Snowball if it does end up actually dropping. And then, of course, you have the Hunter, as we saw before, both the Hunter and the delivery as alternatives to being used against that Goblin
Yeah,
Bear.
Morton, you see they're throwing out the angry face because he's not happy about what he's playing against. You talk about all those responses. Hunter to clean up the Goblin Barrel, Snowball to assist, of course, the delivery to clean it all up. A lot of great responses here for Yarai.
Snowball does its job there, 2103 on the left-hand side. Morton slightly ahead as we approach double elixir.
So Inferno Tower there to deal with that balloon. Yarai going to have to do a good job of using that Miner to get inside, using the bats up high to tank for that Inferno Tower. Got to get the balloon on tower, even if it's just death damage time and time again.
Ice Golem set up on the right-hand side. Miner goes right to the Dark Goblin on the left-hand side. Skeletons protect on that Dark Goblin, so Dart able to go, and now a little bit of support here. Full double bait push, left-hand side.
Yeah, really, really great use there of the Skellies to surround the Dark Goblin. Goblin Barrel comes in just in time to allow that Dark Goblin to take that Fisherman off the board. Great sequence there for Morton.
Miner bats right-hand lane, cheap push, lots of DPS, and now it's Morton going the opposite direction. Hunter to deal with the Goblin Barrel, does it perfectly.
Yeah, great job by both players there, Yarai and Morton, looking to their opponent's mind, knowing exactly what the best offense was, played great defense, huge mitigation.
So here we go, sudden death overtime. Morton does have the slight lead, but as I've said before today, Morton's playing the chip game and Yarai's playing the haymaker game. We'll see if Yarai can land one of the big ones.
Yeah, so Inferno on that balloon, but nothing to reset on top of the Miner, obviously not having Zap in his deck. Going to be very, very tough to deal with the Inferno. Got to deal with the bats, but then having that Miner tank for the balloon, it's going to be really difficult for Yarai to put together.
And there you go. You see the Ice Golem has to come out because the Royal Recruit was behind the tower when that delivery drops. So you see Morton trying to get that Dart Goblin value, but then it doesn't get the value, but does force out 2 more elixir from Yarai.
And one thing we haven't talked about, just because it feels like it goes without saying at this point, but Morton, arguably the best bait player in the world, and we all know how much he loves playing it because he's so good at analyzing and predicting what his opponent's going to do and making them make mistakes.
Like that one right there. The Fisherman pulls the Knight in, but the Knight, instead of going to the Fisherman, goes to the tower and gets 2 massive swings. This time, though, the bats and the Miner in on the right-hand side. This balloon has a very good chance of going all the way.
Late Royal delivery comes in, pushes things back. Log gonna get on top of that. Goblins there. Morton calling good game. He's very, very close to closing this out. 2 logs, a Skelly Barrel drop plus, who knows? But there's no way Yarai comes back from this.
Goblins go to the back, stab that tower, and there you go, a second good game, just in case the first one didn't take. Morton does it in 2, and we're going to King of the Hill.
I mean, That man will always put on a clinic with a bait deck. Doesn't matter what variation or iteration it is, whether it's double bait, whether it's classic log bait, whether it's Prince plus Rascals, Morten can do it when it comes to log bait. And wow, that was a beautiful display because we talked early on about the hunter, the delivery, the snowball, all these great responses to keeping the bait off the board, but Morten making yet I make mistakes.
Well, you talk about knowing bait and being able to outplay with it. A lot of that is knowing those matchups really, really well. And talking about grinding, Morten's still one of the top 5 all-time in Grand Challenge wins with over 1.34 million cards won, which is the most by anyone in Grand Challenges. So this is a guy who has seen and played any possible matchup with bait over and over and over again.
And you love that Goblin Barrel up high to land at the exact moment that the log crosses the tower, just in case skeletons are played, just in case, I mean, not skeletons, but, anything played there up front, gonna move it out of the way, gonna assist those goblins to help at least one of them get a stab. And those are the sequences we talk about. Those are the things we talk about with Morten, those minor interactions when it comes to, even if it's earlier on when he surrounds that Dark Goblin with skellies. Yes, it's so elementary. Protect your highest DPS unit with something cheap when a miner comes in, but the ability to do it in those high-pressure situations against some of the best in the world is why Morten is arguably the best player, period, when it comes to Clash.
So here we are, Andrew. We're going to King of the Hill.
Yeah.
3 players from each side go up. Each player has 1 life. You lose, you go back and sit down. You win, you keep on fighting. Try to get rid of all the other 3 players. And let's talk about these lineups for King of the Hill. Let's first start with the Cream Royale Betis side. The logic, obviously, we're going to see Pedro and Yarai in those spots. The question now is, do you put in Belly, especially after that 1v1 performance, or do you go the opposite direction and take Diego E, who does have a sweep this season?
Oh, man, that is so tough. I think you maybe play Diego E because Bellican played really well today, but Sergio was not at his best, and I don't think Sergio is going to come out again. It seems after that 1v1 set, probably you bring Javi out, but we haven't seen him at all today, and it's an elimination game in playoffs, so maybe he's just not in the right mindset. I don't know, man. That's a really, really great question, and I'm very, very happy that I'm neither coaches of the squads right now.
Yeah, I mean, that takes us to the SK Gaming side. You kind of touched on that for a second. We're going to see Sam and Morten come out. We're going to see those 2 guys for sure. So now the question is Javi the 3rd guy, or is Sergio Ramos the 3rd guy? You would normally think Javi, but if he's not the 3rd guy, where was he today in the 1v1?
Yeah, or even in the 2v2. Again, I agree. I think Sam and Morten are probably the better 2v2 duo, but Javi and Sam were working out. So very, very curious. I wish I could talk to Coach KV or even Javi about it, but we'll find out. King of the Hill coming up. We know Diego, Yarai, Morten, and Sam are going to be there. Who is going to be the 3rd and final player for both squads? And of course, what is the order going to be? So much to be told, man.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think Morten comes out and anchors for SK Gaming. That's a place where he's been a ton of times. I think that's where you put him there. You probably lead off with either Sam or whoever the other player is going to be. On the other side, who knows? Let's take a look. So it's going to be Diego E. And no, Yarai getting benched for Cream here after that loss to Morten. So Diego E, Pedro, and Bellican as the anchor. Javi leading off for SK Gaming, then Sam and Morten.
Yeah, looks like Cream here going with the hot hand, and on the other side of it, SK going with the tried and true. Javi Catorce back out and head-to-head going up against Diego E, who had a great King of the Hill sweep earlier this season. Of course, how could we forget? But it was over Chivas, who struggled a lot.
Javi has the 3rd most wins of any player in the King of the Hill set at 28, just behind Canario's 30, and Wings of Misfits, who we'll see tomorrow with 34.
Yeah, Wings and that King of the Hill. You love to see it. A little missed time there with the balloon.
So fascinating matchup here, Andrew. We're going to see Minor Loon against that Graveyard deck coming out from Javi that we saw played earlier today.
And Graveyard down early to tank for this Inferno Dragon, hoping to make a big nuisance for his opponent with that Inferno. A great kite, however, from Diego E, taking the entire family across the river.
A nice kite from Diego E, but also a solid snowball to create a little extra damage on the right-hand side. So up by about 2, but with the half-health Hunter on the right-hand side for Diego E. Opening sequence blood drawn on both sides as we pass the first minute and 20.
Man, that was one of the better Ice Golem kites I think I've ever seen. I just not sure how he was going to deal with all of that. Archers plus Goblin Brawler plus Inferno Dragon with the Graveyard on his tower, and he only takes about a few hundred damage.
I told you today, Andrew, we'd see a lot of Hunter Fisherman.
Yes, sir.
Here you go, one more time. Minor Muskaloon was a variation for quite a while, but here we go, making some changes, bringing in the Hunter and the Fisherman to be a part of this one. No building in this deck that typically does run.
And one of my favorite things about the Fisherman is messing up your opponent's sequence that they're trying to put together. You see that? Valkyrie cycled in the back, but all of a sudden with the high Fisherman, Javi has to support that Valkyrie with skeletons because he wants his Valkyrie to cross the river at a later time. All that said and done, offensive sequence kind of falls apart, and Diego E gets to get a little bit more damage on tower.
That high delivery, huge for Diego E. Cleans up the archers on the back end. Of course, having to spend a lot of troops. This will be some significant poison value given towards Javi Catorze as we reach the final 30 seconds of regulation.
Hunter stays alive. Archer's up high to take the Hunter off the board, but the bats will distract, and that balloon, wow, great Goblin Cage.
Yeah, Cage pulls that balloon pretty much all the way back. The balloon does not connect, so Inferno Dragon gets distracted once, twice by the Miner and the Bats, but time bought by Javi Catorze. Excellent management on that right-hand defense.
Yeah, an incredibly close game here, separated by less than 50 HP. Miner goes in. Hunter up high to catch that Valkyrie.
And look at the placement of the Goblin Cage here, knowing this Inferno Dragon was no longer able to play defense against that balloon on the right-hand side. Says, fine, if your balloon's not going to, if my Inferno Dragon's not there for your balloon, I'll bring your balloon to my Inferno Dragon.
Really, really nice there from Javi to bring it over into the DPS that he needed. And here we go, Inferno on top of that Ice Golem. Not quite where Javi wanted it.
Snowball should come in for the Bats, but it does push the balloon towards the tower. That's going to be a huge connection here. Tower not quite down, but in a ton of trouble on the right-hand lane.
Miner goes inside. A snowball being played a half a second late is going to be the reason we see Diego E take the first game of King of the Hill off of our former West champions, if he can defend this push.
Hunter playing defense, Snowball trying to make a little bit extra room. Those skeletons doing some damage.
Skelly's on the tower.
Pick up this Miner.
He picks it up. Skelly's on tower, 83 to 356. Cannot spell out is Diego E.
Valkyrie playing some defense. Inferno Dragon high. Snowball to push that balloon back. Is that balloon going to get death damage?
Yes,
that balloon's going to do it. Good game. Oh no, the Cage pulls the balloon back. The Miner gets caught. This is absolutely insane defense from Javi right now. Another balloon down. Graveyard trying to beat it out. Does Javi have the ability to get this damage?
Oh, he's not going to get there in time.
Oh my word, Diego E almost made to eat his words. Javi with a brilliant sequence to extend it, but just too far behind, and Diego with a big time win here in King of the Hill.
What a frustrating final 30 seconds there for Diego E, doing anything and everything he could to try to get a Miner on tower. Javi was not allowing it, but then a great recognition, seeing that Javi had to double drop the Skellies plus the Goblin Cage to stop that Miner in its final sequence. What does he do? He sends in the balloon. I mean, obviously things kind of played out a little bit differently than Diego would have planned, with Javi getting that late second Goblin Cage in, but that was the beginning of the end for Javi in that game.
Yeah, and you see that Javi was trying to put the snowball on the Graveyard offensively, and maybe it was because he was like, look, if I don't take this here, I'm not going to catch yet another Miner. But I wonder if that snowball could have bought a little extra time and let those skeletons go to work, maybe cycle back around one more time. Brilliant scramble by Javi, but Diego E had just come a little bit too far ahead by that.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about guaranteed plays, and yes, it would have definitely guaranteed that he was able to defend one more balloon push, but you talk about getting on top of that Miner 3-4 times in a row. Javi's then just gambling, blindly gambling, hoping he can do it, and Diego E ends up coming out on top. This was very early on. The snowball space created by Diego, it felt like the game was basically over, but Javi stays alive for a really, really long time with these great Miner catches.
Yeah, it's the splitting the skeletons to get them to come around and at least hold it for a second. and then get the Valkyrie down on top of it. But here is that final sequence. Inferno Dragon gets pushed away by the Snowball, and you see the Snowball already played once by Javi, gets the cage down, and look at all these catches. This is absolutely insane. Every time we look at this, you're like, this has got to be it. This has to be it here, doesn't it? And you can see now, I wonder if that Snowball... no, he was so low on Elixir.
Yeah, and I think that Diego E did a really great job of putting the bats just far enough behind to where if you're going to hit all of the units, the 5 bats and the balloon goes forward no matter what. So great play there from Diego. And Javi doing what you and I expect out of him. Highlight plays. I don't know how that second Goblin Cage pulled that balloon, but it did. He stayed alive for a half second longer, but great plays from Diego E, once again, who has been stellar in King of the Hill here in 2020.
Yeah, this has been a banner year for Diego E, a guy who essentially washed out of the league after his poor performance in the spring split of 2019. But just like his teammate St. Belican, who took time off for different reasons, for school rather than for performance, Diego E really went and took the offseason and worked hard and proved he deserves to be in this position. And I think Cream has to be very happy with this pickup for this season.
I mean, he's 4-0 in King of the Hill now with a sweep and a win in playoffs. I mean, what more do you want from your 2v2 guy? I don't think you can ask for much more. So Diego E, once again, adding another victory. Hasn't lost yet in King of the Hill. Going to go on to the next player here for SK. And a really kind of shocking and disappointing performance from Javi here in 2020. I'm one of his biggest fans out there. It's tough to see someone that you really enjoy to play stumble as much as he has this year.
Well, again, we get back to the short season, to the short pool of games you get to watch from somebody. And I did like a lot having seen Javi get moved into 2v2 for the time that it happened, but here we are in game 2 of King of the Hill, and now it's on Sam's shoulders to try to get one back for SK Gaming.
Yeah, so Diego E, great little Goblin Barrel to start, and if you notice that Log plus Skeletons played just in time to get damage on the tower, and of course, stop all the damage.
And so the Heal Spirit will clean up most of that, but wow, that's a few hundred HP of damage that maybe Sam didn't expect to take.
Yeah, I don't think that was the Heal Spirit was played exactly how Sam wanted it. Maybe we see some Skeletons here to catch the Bandit. Yes, we do.
So Log and Ewiz, or Log primarily for the Goblin Barrel, Goblin Cage, Ewiz, and Heal Spirit. Sam should have the tools to deal with the Skeleton Barrel, but again, it's about momentum. He's fallen behind early. Diego E's having a great day today.
Yeah, and then you see all these cards put together, and wonder if we'll see Ram Rider.
With the Heal Spirit, you typically feel like it's Ram Rider rather than the Battle Ram. So I think it's a good call there, Andrew.
So here we go. Taking a lot of damage, but then the Inferno Tower comes down, probably not getting as much out of this push as Sam would have liked, plus a ton of damage on that top right-hand side.
Sam's pretty significantly ahead. I wonder if he does go with something at the bridge now. The advantage, no, he sets up in the back with the Bandit instead.
Yeah, maybe he goes Ram Rider behind Ewiz to support, or no, he's just kind of resetting and setting up, playing very patient. And that's something that's important to note is that, when you take a massive amount of damage, you don't need to go boom or bust. You still have time to recover. That's still a lot of damage to come in on the tower for Diego E. So Sam, I think, actually making the correct decision.
Yeah, not pressing the Elixir advantage is the more curious part of that than anything, but Sam's the pro, and we're the guys watching, and it's Royal Hogs. So we finally do see the Germans bringing out their favorite card.
Yes, sir. Royal Hogs and Ewiz behind, though. Going to be very easy cleanup. With that Dark Goblin in the back, now a barrel in. Sam's in trouble.
High Goblin Cage, Log to wipe the rest of that one off. Does have a Bandit and a Brawler coming behind it fairly soon. Log, though, not in cycle right now for that next Goblin Barrel that should be coming in just a moment.
And every other team in playoffs right now are watching what Diego E is doing to SK Gaming, recognizing that this guy has played stellar in 2v2 and has not yet lost in King of the Hill. I think it adds a whole new level of threat and skill for Cream.
A missed delivery from Diego E. That's a big one. There's a healthy Magic Archer. Bandit now at the bridge. Mega Knight trying to make some room. Does he have enough to play defense here? And the Ewiz cleans it up. 297 on the right-hand side. Wow, Diego E in a good spot. Sam put the pressure on.
Sam really going hard. There is the Royal Delivery, or the Royal, delivery right on top. Magic Archer behind, but delivery played offset to the right. No damage is going to come through for that Magic Archer. Diego E is playing this picture perfect.
This is really phenomenal from Diego E. Goes a little jukey in the back there with that Goblin Barrel, and that gives plenty of value to the log. So now, again, a slight elixir advantage for OP Sam. Is there any way for him to capitalize? Let's see if it's going to be pigs to the left.
Here's the thing, is when you're playing against a deck like this with as much firepower as Diego E has, or excuse me, that Sam has, is you can turn the tide of a game in one interaction. If your opponent misplays their defense and they're behind an elixir, you can just keep pouring it on. But right now, Diego E not quite giving that to the German.
There we go, a really jukey barrel way to the back there. Ewiz will play defense on that side. We should see a log come down, although death damage does come in. And now Diego E in a really great spot. Just needs 2 logs or a little bit of damage from a Goblin Barrel to take this win.
This is a pretty healthy Mega Knight. Gonna get supported by the Bandit though, Rich. This is kind of what we're talking about. Hogs come in behind, and that is a ton supported. Look at that, Bandit's still healthy.
19 HP. Will a log beat this out? Magic Archer trying to get the damage on tower, and it does. Wow, Diego E able to hold on, and now 5-0 on the season in King of the Hill.
I mean, it was starting to slip through his fingers. You talk about maybe one interaction going Sam's way earlier in that matchup. That log doesn't take the tower, and all that around the tower for Diego E maybe gives SK the win. That was an incredible, incredible comeback for Sam, but too little, too late. Diego E, as you said, Rich, 5-0 on the season.
Sam threatened Hogs on the left-hand side with a Heal Spirit cycle to that lane, and for some reason decided not to go with it. I don't know if we'll be able to see that sequence again. But yeah, it was just Diego E forced him to play in that lane, and what this deck does really well is dual lane pressure, and we never really saw it get going until the later moments.
Yeah, and this was a moment where the delivery was just a little bit off, but look at how much damage is remaining on Diego E's tower. 1822 to 213 plus this Skelly Barrel drop. All of a sudden, though, we see Diego go into the driver's seat with this great Bandit plus Magic Archer to start the sequence.
Yeah, Mega Knight leaps back, and so many healthy units on the board, but all he needs is one more log at this stage, and the fact that Diego E was able to survive this chunk here is phenomenal. Yeah. Look at, again, the defensive Goblin Barrel. We saw that earlier today, saw it again here. That defensive Goblin Barrel really cleaning up the defense and making sure he didn't get this one stolen from him in the last few moments.
And Sam did a great job of recognizing, look, the Inferno Tower is now at a cycle. That Knight being played high is a great play by Diego, except for the Mega Knight turns around and chunks away its health. And for you guys that are playing decks that are bridge spam or like what Sam was playing, if your opponent has one tank and it's that Knight and you see its health drop that quickly, you pile on the river just as Sam did. But that log lands just in time, and Diego E, I mean, perfect in King of the Hill. What more is there to say? He's about to sweep SK Gaming to move to semis.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, of course, the guy across from him, Morton, one of the best in King of the Hill, one of the best overall. So there's a reason why he's in the anchor spot, reason why he's in the pressure spot. He's come close to that reverse sweep. He's done it before. And, you know, most recently, we're talking about a situation where Morton was in that number 3 spot, and that's CRL World Finals. Was able to get 1 down, able to get 2 down, and then that last one could not fall there by the slimmest of margins. So it's a big question here. Can Morton put himself back in that position again and then finish the job?
Yeah, he was 2,533 HP along the way. Just one short. So here we go. Morton going to look to redeem himself in a very, very high-pressure situation again. But as he said, he's got 1, 2, 3 people ahead of him. Of course, Belican, Diego E, and Pedro. And that's a really, really tough roster to burn through, assuming they're taking a little bit of a timeout right now to figure things out on the SK side. We should be hopping into the game in just a moment. But Rich, is this what you expected from Liquid and SK today? Both about to be eliminated, and obviously Liquid already being eliminated.
Yeah, where I'm surprised, I'm not super surprised by this SK Gaming matchup with Cream coming down to King of the Hill. I'm not insanely surprised by that. What I am surprised is by the advantage that Cream has gotten in these early moments. So let's go ahead and jump into game number 3. Diego E, man, the Cream Royale Betis, I've said it before today, I'll say it again. They must be so happy with this pickup because he has exceeded expectations, I think, that anyone set for him this season.
Completely, including, I don't want to speak for you, but including myself. I did not expect Diego to be as big of an integral part of CRL 2020. He is so important. He is the same level as any other superstar in the game because of what he's done for Cream.
So, Mortar for Diego E.
And now he's just trying to win me over.
Wall breakers for Mortar. Yeah, now he's just trying to play to the crowd here. Mortar Miner. The bats might have been a bit of an overcommitment there. Realize, not keeping in mind the bomb tower does have a death bomb. So 2 elixir there kind of thrown away.
Maybe Miner 2, yep, right on top of that Musketeer. Skelly's to surround, but wall breakers on the right-hand side. And Rich, that's exactly what you're talking about with that 2 elixir being wasted. There's 2 elixir he needed to defend.
And you see it was just a little bit of a elixir disadvantage, and now we're all even, but with Morton having a significant advantage in damage.
And there's a reason why Morton loves these wall breaker decks so much. Not only is it just a lot of quick damage, is that something that Morton likes, quick cycle that he likes, but the biggest thing about it is watching his opponents make mistakes in elixir preservation. He'll do it over and over again. You'll see him send in wall breakers to the opposite lane, send him in naked, send him in supported for things like this. A double connection.
Wow, that entire sequence was absolutely beautiful. Maybe we'll take a look at that one in our replays. Getting the Miner onto the Musketeer, the Skellies go for the surround, but able to make up enough room that Miner's still alive to tank for the wall breakers.
And this is what we're talking about, the hypo-aggressive play here from Morton, especially getting into double elixir time, but he's going to be relentless. Miner's going to come in, wall breaker's going to go opposite lane. A great catch, though, there by Diego.
But wall breakers are the opposite side here one more time, and sometimes it's for a connection, sometimes it's for pressure, and this time Diego E does not relent to that pressure, realizes that the game is on the left-hand side, and in that situation had to give up the damage on the right.
But that's the last one he gets, right? He doesn't get to keep letting these through. He has to start defending them because all of a sudden when you have both your towers low playing against wall breakers, you're in a world of hurt. So one thing that I'm surprised Diego E hasn't done is maybe use his mortar a little bit more defensively in the middle of the map, not only to help with the wall breakers, but also to help with other units crossing the river like the spear goblins.
So here we go, Knight played on defense by Diego E, and a Miner does get some more damage, only about 500 behind, so not an insurmountable lead, but there is dual lane pressure right now from the German.
Yeah, and you see that bridge battle going out. You know, Skellies, Zap, Snowball, Bats, all that being played just so this Knight can cross the river.
And this high mortar does get a connection, so every time that happens, you get one shot from a mortar and you've gotten what you really needed from that mortar as long as it plays defense.
And that's what I'm talking about. You get that high mortar in the center, not only do you add a little bit of offensive pressure, but you've got a great amount of defensive presence on the map. You see right there, wall breakers go to it, helps the Miner on the back of the tower, pulls the Knight in on the left-hand side. This is something Diego should have done much earlier in this matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be it, though. You see Morton recognizing the skeletons are out of cycle, goes Miner to the back, knowing there really is nothing there to play defense and catch it, and he gets the game win. Huge one for Morton. 1 down, 2 to go.
1 down, 2 to go. That is very, very correct, my friend. And surprisingly, we're going to see Pedro, I believe, pop into the second as the second player here for Cream, putting Belican in the third and final closing spot, which is something that I'm surprised about because I'm pretty sure, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Rich, but thinking back to 2018 in NAEU, Belican was known as someone that was actually moved deeper or farther up in King of the Hill because he was not performing well in those high pressure spots. Does that sound correct to you?
I think I remember you talking. I remember that, Andrew, that he started off in the anchor spot for Queso in those King of the Hill sets, and then was kind of not happy with that position and the pressure it was putting on him. So here we go. This is one of those defensive sequences where you have the mortar high, and here we go. Now I'm realizing where we are. Look at this. You see the skeletons were played beforehand. Yeah. Look how quickly Morton cycles back around to another set of skeletons. The Miner gets on tower, and you have Diego there in an impossible situation. has to play the Knight high for those spears. It's I can't catch the Miner and the spears. I have to choose one or the other. Has to go for the spears, and that Miner gets the chip damage done.
Yeah, it's really frustrating when you have to make negative elixir trades on both sides of that, where you have to send the Miner up high for the spear goblins or double drop to get that Miner down below because you cannot sacrifice any more damage. So, Morton said time and time again that Wall Breakers is one of his favorite decks out there. We've seen him climb ladder with it season after season after season. It's been months now. So very curious to see if he keeps running them, because he is a guy. And again, in that world final or that world championship matchup against Surge, it was another Wall Breakers deck that he lost so very closely, but he actually came back from massive deficits. So Morton doing it once again with Logbait earlier, Wall Breakers now, and barely keeping SK alive.
So let's see what Pedro has in store for Morton in game number 4. Pedro, of course, the big win in 2020, taking number 1 at the Bren Chong Cup.
Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of players have kind of gotten new looks at themselves by those tournaments run by Revel Amar, whether it's the Bren Chong Cup, Moreno Cup, Cabrera Cup, whatever cup Revel's running this week is always a big-time event. And you've seen some players really kind of like reestablish that they are international level players through those events.
So here we go. Let's hop into game number 4. And kind of just to piggyback on your thought there, Rich, that was the first time in the Bren Chong Cup where I was really familiarized with Pedro. And the people that I saw him take out and the way that he did it was absolutely jaw-dropping. I was so excited that he was going to be here at CRL West 2020. I was just hoping he was going to make it. And now that he's here, and now we've seen him play, he is not disappointed.
Pedro with the defensive Miner. Look at that sequence. Knew that he had to stop the Wall Breakers high. Defensive Miner. Brilliant, brilliant work from Pedro to keep that damage off tap.
And so this is interesting because I'll be honest, I don't think I want to play Wall Breakers against Morton playing Wall Breakers. He seems to be a guy that's usually got the advantage when it comes to this archetype, but we'll see. Pedro maybe looks at it and goes, I can play this better than you, and we're not looking at a mirror matchup, so we'll see which Wall Breakers come out on top.
One thing I am curious about, Andrew, is the way this Fisherman comes into play. If you start seeing Morton run certain types of defenses against the Wall Breakers, can the Fisherman come in and maybe disrupt some of that defense as time goes on? It seems like it might be a little slow, but the key for Pedro might be some good defenses with the Fisherman and then timing some of these pushes as the Fisherman moves across the bridge.
A 100% agreement with you there. I think the Fisherman to stop Wall Breakers pushes is going to be a big thing for Pedro, and then turning that into a counter push. That being said, Morton knows that Fisherman can completely stop his Wall Breakers and turn something into a counter, so he's probably not going to allow that to happen by pouring more down at the river with those Wall Breakers.
Log really not doing what Pedro wanted, I think, in that situation. So here we go. The Fisherman now going to run right into the Knight. We're pulling back over, and Wall Breakers now come in behind.
Yeah, high bats there. Going to make that an easy cleanup, and should not provide enough protection here for the Fisherman.
Miner bats right-hand side, and Fisherman again trying to pull this Miner into a position. So far, that's 2 Fisherman pulls that maybe look like they're intending not just to pull the Miner, but maybe turn it into a King Tower activation. Neither one getting it done. I don't know if I haven't played the new Fisherman at this range in so long. I don't remember if it actually activates the Miner at this stage.
Yeah, and you see here the poison finally coming out for Pedro, running basically Miner poison control with them. Obviously the Wall Breakers in there, and he's going to start doing that a lot more. He's going to start going with the Miner poison in, because the responses that Morton has, if the Knight's not in play, it's all poisonable.
So another defensive Miner play here from Pedro to tank a bit for those small DPS troops.
Does get one little bat bite there in, but Pedro probably wishing he had that Miner to turn into offense with those bats, but had to use it defensively.
Here we go, sudden death overtime. Morton slightly ahead, but by a margin that can change in the blink of an eye.
And you see there Morton going with the log, looking to catch the skeletons that he thought Pedro might play. Pedro, though, doing the very intelligent thing and changing up his defense, making it very hard for Morton to land any sort of predictive play, which is something he's really known for.
So Hunter's still alive on the board, but Morton's starting to pull ahead on Elixir, so you see starting to pour it on the right-hand lane. Miner goes to the high inside corner, to make some room for this push to come on through, and that's a double wall breakers connection.
Both wall breakers connect, and the miner is now out of cycle along with the spear goblins coming through. Morten gonna even things up, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a winner-take-all best of one with Morten and Belican, and that is not a position I want to be in if I'm Cream.
Splitting things up one more time, and this time the miner gets eaten up by the fishermen and bats. Miner poison opposite direction. We are triple elixir. Opposite direction, wall breaker pressure on the left-hand side from Morten.
Wallbreaker connects again on the left-hand side, 843 and 480 to 1251 and 2046. Morten giving a lot of log
to
value.
The left-hand lane. This is a lot of value coming the right-hand side. A royal delivery after that should clean it up nicely. There you go. Miner on the tower, 200 HP on the right-hand side.
Wallbreakers go left again. Spear Goblins support the right-hand side. Miner back in once again. Not. Yes, it is picked up by those skeletons, but the log comes in. We are going to game 5.
755 on the top-hand side. It's a lot of poison value. This miner gets caught one more time. Andrew, it's going to be 2 more logs here for Morten. He's trying to close this thing out, but he's up against poison. The miner gets on tower. Does his miner get on tower as well? No, the skeletons pick it up. 231. That's going to be it. Morten does finally close it out. Pedro made that a game, but Morten says, you're not taking this from me. We're going to game 5.
Pedro now maybe taking a seat for the rest of a season in such a close game. Now all eyes on Belican. But he did it time and time again back in 2018 and again in the offseason. Belican has been playing out of character lately. Top tier, but now this is massive, massive pressure, Rich.
This is going to be huge, and again, you're reminding me about, I'd forgotten about that with King of the Hill, where Belly asked to be moved up in the lineup because he did not like the pressure of anchoring. So, I mean, but keep that in mind. That was 2 years ago. That was a barely 16-year-old St. Belican. This is now who's a graduated, taking his time between high school and university version of St. Belican. So a much more mature player. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the action from this battle between Morten and Pedro. And the key factor here at the end, Andrew, was that even though Morten had this advantage, the poison in the end could be a pretty significant issue.
It was just so much value on every single offensive push that Pedro put in. Morten luckily had gotten enough damage in early on with his wall breaker play. Pedro, though, I mean, we've seen it now twice with Cream matchups where they are just seconds away from something else happening, from different outcome, and that was another one of those moments. Pedro really, really clawed back into it, but Morten kept the advantage, stayed true, kept the miners on the tower even when they were caught, and just barely squeezes away with it.
Well, you saw Pedro there went with the double drop, the skeletons in the back to avoid being taken off by the log, and then the fisherman up high. And what you noticed there was the skeletons caught the miner, then the fisherman pulled the miner to the front of the tower where the miner retargeted the tower rather than the fisherman and got that big shot in there. So trying to cover all his bases ends up giving that last tick of damage away, and now we're going to game number 5, and this is what you want to see in a playoff, Andrew.
Set 5, match 2, game 5, quarterfinals, elimination. What else is there to say? Here we go. Belican, as you said it, he dropped the Saint. It's been 2 years since we've seen him in CRL West, and he's back going up against Morten. 1 HP at World Finals last year, looking to stay alive for SK.
These two know each other very well. They've seen each other a lot competitively over the years. Both top-tier players, both in competitive and ladder. Personal best for Morten, above 8.6. For Belican, above 8.5.
He's doing it. He's what's it called? Ice Rocket? Nope, not going to be Rocket. But it's... Okay, so he's going to go Poison. It's got to be a Graveyard.
Yeah, there you go. Looking like Graveyard for Morten. For a second, it felt like it, though, didn't it?
It sure did.
First 45 seconds away, and a slightly bloodied nose on the right-hand tower of St. Belican, but that's about it.
Yeah, we've seen this combination before. When you see the Flying Machine, you see the Mega Knight, you have to think maybe we're going to see some Royal Hogs as well.
Ice Whiz to the left-hand lane. So far, it's interesting to see Morten in this situation go with a very control-based deck. Just, I want to be able to play defense and I want to be caught out.
Yeah, You know, this deck is a pretty great response to a lot of archetypes out there. The one that we see Graveyard struggle the most against, though, is something like Expo, which I'm imagining he wasn't putting Belican on to play.
It's also interesting to see Morten go Graveyard again in a Game 5 playoff situation like this.
Yeah.
Of course, going back to that matchup between Surgical Goblin and Morten, I think that was Surgical Goblin playing bridge spam against Morten's Graveyard in that one, and you saw how close that one came out, so it seems to be Morten has a pattern here. When it's all on the line, go Graveyard.
So here we go, lot coming across the river here for Morten. Graveyard coming out finally as we get to double elixir time. And I do not think that sequence went the way the Belican thought it was going to.
No, not at all. Flying Machine gone, a pile of damage in, and Morten now with a significant lead with 45 seconds left in regulation.
That is a huge lead. Cage comes out to catch all this. Couple Hogs are going to sneak through, but you have to imagine Morten probably has Tornado as well. Doesn't even feel the need to use it, though, because he has such a massive damage lead.
Here we go. Pigs do get a little bit of damage, but still not quite enough to get him back in the mix. Mega Knight sets up to the left-hand lane.
Bar Barrel comes out to keep that Ice Wiz on the board. Mega Knight going to leap again on top of that. Maybe that Bar Barrel was a little bit of an overspend from Morten.
Here we go. Sudden death overtime. Final game of the final set of quarterfinals. Winner goes on to face Misfits in the semis.
Yeah, and you know Misfits are watching every second of this match, trying to figure out everything they can about who they may play. Nice high poison there from Morten, going to keep that Flying Machine at bay because of the Goblin Cage, take the Flying Machine off the map. Morten still in a very healthy lead.
Belican's done a good job of locking down the damage on the left-hand side. Morten does have dual lane pressure at the moment. And adds in a little King Tower activation just for good measure.
A little insult to injury there. Now going to be able to help out with the Goblin Cage. Is that King Tower activation? Mega Knight, though, crossing the river. Healthy Mega Knight. Knight comes down to meet it. Belican really having a difficult time creating any sort of offense other than that one hog push.
And a smart high poison here from Morten, knowing the Baby Dragon would stick all that in it and get the Flying Machine down, but now 9 elixir at the bridge.
So here we go. Bar Barrel comes in, actually doesn't hit the Bandit there, so Bandit going to get picked up by the Brawler and tank for those Hogs.
Quite a lot of damage on the right-hand side, 14-19, so Belican certainly alive at the moment, sets the line high with the Cage against the Graveyard, and another good poison, this time getting some value. Flying Machine and Hogs going the opposite lane.
Flying Machine Hogs opposite lane, but that Ewiz maybe played a second too early on the left-hand side. A lot of damage coming in here for Morten. St. Belican, 549, but getting some damage in on that top right tower, bringing his opponent's tower to just above, or just below 1200 HP.
Final 28 seconds, Graveyard in on the left-hand lane, Goblin Cage on both sides, one preemptive, one reactive, and now we have the Graveyard trying to chip away, Skeletons getting in, Heal Spirit goes right-hand lane, final big pig push coming for Belican, can he break through?
Here it is, you know it was coming with that high Flying Machine to take that Goblin Cage off the board. Goblin Cage back around though, looks like SK's going to the semis, Rich.
NATO to clean things up. Morten comes out with a huge reverse sweep, clutches it up in a massive moment, and you got to shake off some of those old feelings right now. Morten, the hero today for SK Games.
And just what an incredible display from someone that you would completely expect it from. They go back-to-back getting swept in their 1v1 sets. He comes out and he puts up 5 in a row, Rich. He's 7-0 on the day. 7-0 on the day in quarterfinals. 1-2-3 in King of the Hill. 1-2 in that final 1v1 set to push it to King of the Hill after the dominant 2v2 start. He is a god when it comes to Clash Royale.
There's a reason why most competitive players consider him to be the top guy. When you're talking about competitive Clash Royale, this is it. And we just saw an amazing season-making performance from Morten.
So here we go. Let's just take a look at it here. Morten, this is his very first offensive push. You see that he has so much coming across the river already. He times his first Graveyard perfectly with double elixir time. That is not a mistake. That is not a coincidence. That is science right there. You see there, the E-Wiz comes across the river with a little bit of a counter push, cleaned up with the bar barrel, and a massive difference as soon as they get into double elixir time.
I love that you say it. That is science right there, and that really is the cerebral approach that SK Gaming, in particular Sam and Morten, take to this game. And it was just beautiful. Beautiful sequence on that end. Perfectly locked down defense. We talked about that as well. Morten went with something he knew he could control in late game. The cage, the NATO, the Ice Wiz. So much control here. And able to just lock things down when it got critical, not give up too much damage, and put enough on the opposite side. SK Gaming going to face Misfits in the semis.
And it feels like a little bit of a gamble, but it really is one of those things. We talked about it, and I'm glad we're circling back around to it. But the matchup, right? What is the worst matchup usually for Graveyard? We've seen it from decks that are played at CRL. It's going to be something like Expo, ISPO, right? That's going to be one of the worst things we've seen. But Morten going, that's one deck. And there are so many other decks that are so popular, especially with the new meta. And if you look at the history of CRL, NA, EU, or West, over here on the West side, we like to rapidly adjust to the meta. We got punished for it in 2018 Worlds, but it's something that we've done time and time again. Morten goes, all right, I think he's going to adjust. I think he's going to change things up. I don't think I'm going to see ISPO today, and he doesn't. Beautifully played. Beautiful deck selection.
Yeah, I mean, that was gorgeous. And, of course, not just one, but 1, 2, 3 from Morten. And a criticism of SK Gaming for a long time. This is a real one. It's been criticism of that they are not clutch. Yeah. In these high-pressure situations, they don't deliver. Some people even said that their Western Championship was facing against a Team Liquid who'd already qualified and had to go through 3 matches to do it. Right? So there's kind of been some criticism there, but now you look at a moment like this one where they really were dead in the water. You can't question Morten's mettle, Morten's ability to clutch up and nail things down in those big minutes anymore.
Feels like every single SK season has had an asterisk next to it. Came this close, lost by 1 HP, one interaction went the wrong way, or like you said, when they became West champions, it was against a team that had already kind of thrown in the towel and locked things in. So there we go. Quarterfinals in the books. Rich, we're back at the same time, same place tomorrow for our semis with these 4 knockout squads.
Yeah, that's 10 a.m. in the West, 1 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. Central European summertime. So make sure you're here for this one. Tribe Gaming has not yet lost a set. Well, they're playing 5 tomorrow against a Spacestation that looked very, very good today. And then also tomorrow, the second match, the All-American squad of Misfits going up against SK Gaming. And, you got to wonder, Andrew, how much advantage not having to play today, not having to show any decks today, being able to spend the week prepping for either one of these teams, this gives to Tribe and Misfits.
I think it gives a massive advantage, but here's the other thing. If I'm Misfits, I'm a little scared right now. I just saw exactly what Morten can do and is expected to do in the highest pressure situation, and he comes through. So yes, Misfits has had a great season. Yes, they're a squad that you and I talked about as a team that had a very, very high ceiling. But the thing about SK is their floor is so high. Their ceiling is through the roof, and you saw it today. Back against the wall, 1 player left, 7-0. So Misfits going to put in a lot of practice tonight and a lot of studying on what Morten does. Maybe even what he does in Game 5s when things are up against the line. Other side of it, Tribe hasn't lost a set. Will someone finally take a set off of them? Will someone finally take a set away from Jupiter King? Seems hard to do.
Yeah, no one's been able to do it so far, so that's certainly pretty difficult. And then keep this in mind that last time we had a 16 bracket World Finals, the 2 first-round bye teams, SK and FAV, did not go through to the actual final. So there's some precedence there that maybe that's not the way things will go.
Yeah, so guys, that's the quarterfinals for today. Were you watching along on YouTube? I sure hope you were, and I hope you're subscribed, and you better turn on those notifications. Did you see the matches today? How upset would you have been if you missed them because your notifications weren't turned on? Turn them on. Do us a favor. I'm not upset. I'm trying to help you out here, okay? Also, follow us on Twitter. That's another thing to help you out. Follow Rich at Rich Slayton. You can follow me at Andrew Guy, and of course, most importantly, follow at Esports Royale, EN, for all your up-to-date latest Clash Royale news. And of course, there are going to be polls up again for the matches tomorrow. We love to see those results. We love to see your guys' interaction. Lastly, Fantasy Royale, how did your teams pay off today? I'll be honest, the 2 squads that I picked players from, they went through. They paid off. It looks like you're in the same boat, man.
Yeah, no, this was considering how bad my fantasy season has been so far. This was kind of a big one. So feeling pretty good about that one. Guys, this has been a wild quarterfinal. Of course, so much more to go. Cannot wait for tomorrow. And then, of course, set your calendars. Next Saturday, July 18th, that's going to be the actual final. So tomorrow we'll decide our 2 finalists. Will it be Tribe? Will it be Spacestation Gaming? Will it be SK? Will it be Misfits? Well, 2 of those will go into that final. So whatever your calendar has for July 18th, clear that. Make sure you're here that Saturday for the finals. Andrew, any idea what happens tomorrow, or are we just going to have to sit back and let it happen?
I think it's going to be the latter. Just show up at 10 a.m. here. We'll be here for these incredible semifinal matches, and a big, big shout-out, tip of the hat, salute, whatever you want to call it, to our 2 fallen squads today in Team Liquid and, of course, Cream Real Betis. Incredible, incredible seasons. Great performances today, but you fell just a little bit short. But now you get to be like us. You get to sit back and watch the incredible action that we're going to see over the next 2 playoff match days.
Yeah, best of 5 tomorrow to start things off, best of 5 tomorrow to finish things off. We'll see these full rosters. We will see this full depth. Make sure you're back here 10 a.m. tomorrow in the West, 1 p.m. in the East, and if you were getting those workouts, don't skip leg day. Take care of those legs as well. I'm Rich Slayton. That's Andrew Guy. We'll see you tomorrow.